Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rhode Island House of Representatives Committee on Education. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Chairman McNamara.
Here.
Chairman Representative Barrows. Representative Amore.
Here.
Representative Alzate. Representative Bia.
Here.
Representative Caldwell.
Here.
Representative Donovan.
Here.
Representative Fenton Fung.
Present.
Representative Giraldo.
Here.
Representative Kislak.
She's here.
Representative Norae. Representative Phillips.
Present.
Representative Ranglin Vassell. Representative Roberts.
Present.
Representative Shalcross Smith.
Present.
Okay. We have a quorum, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start our calendar, we are going to make a motion to hold the bills that are on our agenda for further study. This motion is being made to keep the bills alive within the bar of the committee so that when we hear your testimony, if changes are needed in the legislation, we may amend it. So with that, I am going to make a motion to hold House Bill 5354, 5355, 5521, 5522, 5625, 5650, 5697, 5698, 5823, 5824, 5825, 5836, and that is it, to hold those bills for further study. Is there a second? Representative Phillips and Giraldo, second. All those in favor, will the clerk please take the roll?
Chairman McNamara.
Yes.
Representative Barrows. Representative Amore.
Yes.
Representative Alzate.
Yes.
Representative Bia.
Yes.
Representative Caldwell.
Yes.
Representative Donovan.
Yes.
Representative Fenton Fung.
Yes.
Representative Giraldo.
Yes.
Representative Kislak.
Yes.
Representative Norae.
Yes.
Representative Phillips.
Yes.
Representative Ranglin Vassell. Representative Roberts.
Nay.
That was a nay? Thank you. And Representative Shalcross Smith.
Yes.
Okay, Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
can I just be marked present, please? I had some
Yes,
technical
Representative
difficulties when we were
Alzate.
doing
We've
the call.
got her.
Is here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. The order in which we will take the bills, Representative Lombardi has one bill that's very quick, then Representative Williams also has one bill, and then Representative Vella Wilkinson. So we'll do the two singles. So with that, House Bill 5521, Representative Lombardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I love the composition of this committee more than anything. There's so many people on this committee that are education-oriented and child-oriented, and this is the bill that I put in every year. And what it would do is asking school committees to provide transportation for students who reside 2 miles or more from the schools. I would actually love to see them on every, if it's a mile or half a mile. You know, our mantra's been warm, safe, and dry. And there's nothing like going to school being cold, damp, and wet. That's not the way to go to school, and especially in the inner city schools and the especially the minority communities, Pawtucket, Central Falls, Providence. You know, in many instances, there's absentee landlords, sidewalks are not plowed, children have to walk in the street, and it's an obstruction, and there's just no way to do it. And that's why I would love to see our children, with everything else that they're going through, certainly with COVID. I mean, this has been certainly an anomaly, and, you know, people trying to, you know, maintain 2 and 3 jobs to try and keep a roof over their head. We should at least make sure that our most valuable commodity is being transported to and fro from school. So, and with that, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I will endeavor to answer the questions if I may, but it looks like most of you would have the answers already. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
And Representative Lombardi, thank you for your passion on this issue, and I couldn't agree with you more. I know when I was a school administrator, I always had a drawer full of clothing. Wasn't always the most stylish, but we wanted our students to be warm and comfortable. And you are right, and I think every educator would agree 100% that safety, security, and basic needs being met are most important before any meaningful learning takes place. So,
Mr. Chair, so now we know where your tie-dye shirts went, but that's okay.
All of that stuff comes back again.
Amen. It's retro.
Right. With that, any committee members have a question for Representative Lombardi?
I do.
Yes, Representative Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Representative Lombardi, you forgot about his bell-bottom pants, too.
Oh, gee. Oh, I think I hit my head this morning, Rep. I apologize.
I think I've asked this question of you in the past, but have you researched any fiscal note, whether or not there's going to be an impact on to cities and towns and school committees on what would be, you know, maybe they have to add additional buses of that. So have you reached out to anybody to see if there's any fiscal impact?
Again, I have, but we've been changing our administrators in Providence probably more frequently than I change my T-shirts. But anyway, so, and you know, you get a variety of answers. Some say yes, some say no. But again, in my estimation, in my humble opinion, I think, again, our children need to be safe. And, you know, they talk about as the crow flies. That's not how these streets are. They have to walk around buildings, dead ends, you know, and to me, the cost is weighing that up with our valuable commodity. I think it's irrelevant, and I think we can certainly find the funding when you're talking about, in Providence especially, over a $400 million assessment for schools. This would be probably in the hundreds of thousands, that's all.
Okay, well, I just know that question is going to be posed to myself or one of our other delegation from our school committee.
I understand.
Okay.
Representative Norae.
Thank you, Chairman. And first, can I be marked present? Thank you.
Without objection.
Representative, I'm with you 100% on this bill. I'm in total agreement. But I do have to tell you that back in November, I spoke with the financial person for the Coventry schools. I do not have this in writing, but the number of $1.4 million came up as the transportation cost over the last year because of COVID spending, and also because of the career and technical centers with students going out of district. That was the number that was, they had anticipated 400,000. And the number, again, I was given, I don't want to be as a sworn statement, but 1.4 million. So again, if they're searching for $1 million, and this is Coventry alone, that I agree with you as far as you can't put a value on a life, and with the streets, sidewalks, plowing, wintertime, I'm with you, bad weather conditions. And again, Coventry, it's a country mile versus a city block. So that really is going to be a deciding factor for me, is the fiscal impact that would put on my two communities. Thank you.
May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and with all due respect, Representative Norae, this has nothing to do with you. We've had virtual learning and Zoom conferences for the past year. So they've probably realized some savings somewhere. I'm sure they didn't spend all that money. I would hope that they didn't, because what are they paying for? But that's that's a question that I would raise. But again, I guess we have to weigh it up, and it's the balancing test. Are our kids that important, or they're not? And again, like I said, my bill calls for 2 miles, so somebody who's within a mile probably wouldn't fall within it. But that's just my view on it. That's what I would be asking anyway.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Representative Lombardi? Thank you very much,
I
Representative.
think Amore has a question, Mr. Chairman.
Who does?
Chairman,
Amore, I think.
Oh, Chairman Amore.
thank you, Chairman. Just really quickly, we've heard this bill a number of times, and we have a principal on our committee, and we have another person speaking now that's in a urban ring school. When it rains and when it's very cold, we see a precipitous drop-off in attendance in the urban and urban ring districts. And if you're not in school, you can't learn. And I think Representative Bai would agree with that. He sees it. When it's really cold or raining hard, we really see a drop-off in attendance. And that's what an impact that has on a student's ability to continue to matriculate. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rep. Lombardi, for this bill.
Thank you, Chairman Amore. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I just...
Yes, absolutely.
Rep. Lombardi, just to
Representative
clarify.
Yep.
So I do support this bill, Rep. Lombardi. My only concern is, so the 2 miles actually reside in Providence currently, but what the district did was the district's like taking kids now for like 1 mile, giving them bus passes currently. You're aware about that, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, and I just hope that this does not affect that, that decision that we made in Providence, Joe, because based on exactly what he just alluded to and what Rep. Amore alluded to just a few seconds ago. And so I hope that this 2 miles doesn't affect our decision here in Providence. And probably affect Providence, Pawtucket, Central Falls, and everything else.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Vio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate your concern and your time. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the hearing on 5521. The next bill we're going to hear is 5697 by Representative Madam Chair Williams. Madam Chair, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. 5697, this bill will incorporate African heritage history education in all Rhode Island elementary and secondary schools. The goal is for all students to receive instructions on African heritage history in order to have a more comprehensive understanding of the history of our nation. And they teach the parents, they teach the neighbor, so it's not just them, it's about the adults too. The legislation calls for every school district to include in its curriculum a unit of instruction of African heritage and history, utilizing but not being limited to the materials collected and disseminated by the Department of Education, commencing with the 2022-23 school year. The bill does not require school district to require African heritage history instruction in every year, but that African heritage education and instruction shall be utilized during appropriate times in the elementary and secondary school curricula, as determined by the local authority. All students should have received instructions on African heritage and history materials by the time they have graduated from high school. As we have witnessed over the past year, the connections that hold our society together are fragile and can only remain strong through respect, compassion, and most importantly, truth. Knowing this truth is essential to a united society, and if this legislation is passed, I am very happy that these lessons will finally be presented to our students and, in many cases, the adults, so that they may go forth into the world truly knowing what parts of our society work for everyone, and the parts that sadly still remains caught in a cycle of intolerance and injustice. And hopefully, our students will use this knowledge to create a better society, a society that actually values the life and dignity of every Rhode Islander, regardless of our differences. This has been my hope, to bring our state's true history to light. And if this bill is passed, it will make that dream a reality, not just for me, but the entire state of Rhode Island.
Thank you,
And that is my
Madam
testimony.
Chair. Are there any questions for Chair Williams? Hearing none, the first...
Representative Chairman McNamara.
Yes.
Rep. Amore, I do have a question.
Representative Amore has a question. Please proceed.
It's very rare that people can't see me, so I feel good about that. Normally I take up so much space that people can see me. So I'm gonna take my
Looking very
rep hat
fit.
off for a minute and put my Rhode Island citizen hat on as someone who's going to testify on behalf of this bill. This bill is perfectly crafted because it is not too prescriptive. It offers broad leeway to educators and districts to incorporate this curriculum. We have a requirement now that we incorporate Rhode Island history. You cannot incorporate Rhode Island history without incorporating African heritage history. It's just an impossibility. And I can also tell you, as someone who teaches at a high school that offers 3 levels of African studies, they are the most popular courses in our high school. They are popular amongst all students, all races, ethnicities, backgrounds, colors. It is the course to be in because it has such a great impact. So I cannot speak more highly of this bill or these efforts, and I thank Chairwoman Williams for putting it forward. Chairman, thank you for that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any further questions from the committee?
Representative Alzate had her hands up.
Oh, Representative Alzate.
So thank you, Chairman. But I just want to say thank you to Chairwoman Williams for always bringing this to the forefront. This is, I have to agree with our history teacher, Representative Amore, because we cannot teach American history without African American history. And, especially in Rhode Island, it just goes with everything that we need to learn this. This is our history. It's not just African history or Rhode Island history. Rhode Island history is our history. And, it's just, we're doing an injustice by not teaching it or not making it available. And we really need something like this to be in all of our schools, because the better educated that we are, the better leaders we will be. So thank you for this legislation. I move passage.
The express train. Are there any other comments or questions? The first witness will be Maria Palmgren. And there is no opposition to this. Okay, it's Jennifer Lima. Welcome. Please proceed. Limit your testimony. There's no opposition to this. 2 minutes. Bill, could you please time them? We'll give you a warning.
Great, thank you. I'd like to thank the chair and the committee members for allowing me to testify in support of this bill.
Okay.
My name is Jennifer Lima, and I'm a resident of North Kingstown. I'm a member of the school committee there, but I'm here today in my capacity as the founder and co-president of an organization named Towards an Anti-Racist North Kingstown, TANK.
There's no opposition today.
TANK recently hosted an event called Setting the Record Straight, the uncomfortable truth about Rhode Island's history with people of color. It was an examination of the relationship between Rhode Island's colonists, their slaves, and the native people of the region. We heard from numerous people who grew up in and live in this area who had no idea about this part of our state's past. Yet I'd wager they all were familiar with the battle at Bunker Hill. The children in our state deserve to learn the true measure of the impact of the contribution of African heritage people. They deserve the history they're taught to be a full and thorough recounting, not just 28 days in February. This is true for children of color, white children, all children, and certainly my biracial children as well. I refer back all the time to Maya Angelou and how when we know better, we need to do better. Individual states and towns are starting to do just that, but that's a piecemeal approach and is dependent upon too many variables to affect real meaningful change. This bill is a great first step to, getting it across a statewide measure, and I thank you for your consideration in supporting this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Lima? Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have Paige Cloyes Parks from Rhode Island Kids Count. Welcome, and please proceed.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. I am Paige Cloyes Parks, Senior Policy Analyst at Rhode Island Kids Count. We would like to voice our support for this bill, for House Bill 5697. I think we're all really aware about the importance of a bill like this. Students of color face discrimination in school and outside of school. 45% of our students in October 2019 identify as students of color, so this bill will impact a large percentage of our children. National studies have shown that Black youth specifically experience more than 5 racial discrimination experiences every single day. So the need for this type of bill and this type of education is clearly so important. Currently, culturally relevant and historically accurate education that celebrates identities of students has positive impacts on both school climate, student engagement, and academic outcomes. I'd also like to bring to the committee's attention that in 2019, Connecticut passed a similar bill. The General Assembly passed legislation that required all school districts to include African American, Black, Puerto Rican, and Latino studies as part of the curriculum. That work was led by the current U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, and Connecticut became the first state in the country to utilize its social studies frameworks to provide this curriculum. I know you all have heard me say this before, and I'll say it again, that schools have a unique opportunity to become leaders in reversing structural racism, and this is just the right bill to help us move in the right direction. I want to thank Chairwoman Williams for introducing this legislation, and thank you so much to the committee.
Thank you, Paige. Any questions for this witness? The next witness will be Catherine Jones, Paul Cuffey School. Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Catherine Jones, and I'm a high school history teacher at Paul Cuffey Upper School in Providence, and I'm also department head, and I just wanted to voice my very strong support for this bill. I think it is essential for us to require African American history in high schools in Rhode Island for many reasons. The first being that students are hungry for this knowledge. They're hungry to see role models that look like them for those students who might identify as Black. And for white students and students of other races as well, it's equally as important for them to learn this history and for them to also see role models from Black history in our schools. I think it has sent a strong message to students that it has not been included. It's a huge lack. It says it's not important, and we really need to emphasize that it is equally as important. And I, as a history teacher for the past 7 years, and as a history teacher in Providence, currently working with lovely 11th graders, I very strongly support this bill. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Are there any questions for Ms. Jones? Thank you. The next witness is Topher Hamblett, the Foundation for West Africa. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman McNamara and members of the committee. My name is Topher Hamblett. Most of you know me as working for Save the Bay, but I'm here today in my capacity as a Rhode Island citizen and also the president of the Foundation for West Africa. It's a Rhode Island-based organization founded by 2 folks from the West African community here and myself. And since 2005, we've been helping to build radio stations in West Africa that reach about 9 million people. Many years ago, we sponsored or co-sponsored an event that brought a 7th-generation descendant of a Sierra Leonean girl who was taken into slavery by a Newport slave trading family and brought to the United States. It was a powerful event, and even back in 2005, we knew that what is in Representative Williams' bill should actually become law. And so we are thrilled that and grateful to Representative Williams for introducing the legislation. We totally, strongly agree with the goals of the bill. We believe that every child who is raised in Rhode Island should have basic knowledge of our state's history, and any telling of American history and Rhode Island history that does not include the story of Africans and their descendants is woefully incomplete and does a disservice to our students and to our state. But embedding African heritage history in curriculum will broaden and deepen Rhode Islanders' understanding of the truth of our past and of our present. I also want to recognize Reps Amore and Alzate for their comments today on the bill. We strongly agree. So I will submit written testimony as a follow-on, but please know that the Foundation for West Africa, a Rhode Island-based group, strongly supports this legislation. I thank Representative Williams for introducing it, and my representative, Representative Kazar, for being a co-sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Topher. Mr. Hamlet, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hamlet? The next witness really needs no introduction when we're talking about African American history, and especially the fact that Newport was just mentioned. He is an expert, and I'm not going to say just on Newport African American history and preservation, but certainly our entire state, and no hearing on African American history in Rhode Island would be complete without Mr. Keith Stokes of the great city of Newport. Mr. Stokes, welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Again, this is Keith Stokes from Newport, and please accept my testimony on behalf of House Bill 5697 that would require the implementation of education courses in African American history in elementary and secondary schools in Rhode Island. Whenever there's been a major social protest or civil rights movement in America, there's almost always been a call for black and ethnic history education. The Black Lives Matter protests this past summer across America have caused the call again for black and multicultural history to be included in the school curriculum. Part of this call for action is the public's heightened interest to learn and know more about the history of the people who have been a part of the American fabric since the very beginning. There's also a sense that educational enlightenment will help advance racial relations and healing, particularly here in our great state of Rhode Island. Rhode Island occupies a unique position for making a case for African American history within the school curriculum. Rhode Island has much of the deepest and richest collections of documents and artifacts of African and heritage history spanning nearly 4 centuries. We have an opportunity to create a broader reaching curriculum that recognizes not only the vital contributions of these fellow Rhode Islanders have made to our state, but also to our nation and the world. The inclusion of African American history requirement does not change how history is taught to school children, but actually augments and enriches what they learn. As an example of this important learning opportunity is the history of my own Rhode Island ancestor, Reverend Malon Van Horn of Newport. Reverend Van Horn was pastor of the Union Congregational Church for nearly 30 years. The center of the black community has always been the church, and Van Horn became a part of a new generation of a post-Civil War black leaders who would lead black churches in Rhode Island and across America in major roles in promoting civil rights. In 1885, Van Horn became the first African American elected as a Rhode Island state representative. He led the effort that same year to pass the state's first civil rights law. Later, President William McKinley appointed him to become general counsel to the Danish West Indies during the Spanish-American War in 1898. He is one of many influential Rhode Island leaders who are almost largely unknown because of this lack of an inclusive history curriculum.
Keith,
in conclusion, Rhode Island has the opportunity to lead the nation in how we tell inclusive history of all Americans by advancing public education, accelerating the inclusion of African American history that represents all. But most importantly, reconciliation and healing starts with teaching and learning, and we can learn more when we learn together. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stokes, for the work that you do, and I was so pleased to read recently that the Brown Archaeology Department is working in Newport with a burial site known as God's Little Acre that I think you're probably familiar with. and the documentation of those lives of slaves and freed African Americans is critically important work, and I commend you and the archaeology department and everyone that's working to keep this history alive. So thank you for the work you do. Are there any questions for Mr. Stokes? Thank you very much. Christine Alves. Welcome, and please proceed.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Christine Alves. I came here to Rhode Island from New York in 1994 to attend Brown as an undergrad. I went on to get my master's in teaching, and I have been working in Rhode Island schools for over 20 years. I'm here today as a Black woman, mother, and educator, urging you to vote yes on H5697 because African American history is American history. As a matter of fact, this country is where it is today because of the contributions, skills, labor, and perseverance of Black people. Their stories should be told. Their legacies should be made known. And our children, our future leaders of our society, need to be equipped with the knowledge and truth about history. And in particular, children of African descent will benefit from knowing more about how their ancestors shaped this country. Please vote yes for truth and respect, because that's what this is all about, and this is long overdue. Thank you for your time.
Very well done, Ms. Alves. Are there any questions for Ms. Alves? The following witnesses have sent written testimony: Maria Palmgren, Jordan Goyette, Alyssa Dioso, Kids Count, Marco Lima, Sophomore at Times Academy, and Catherine Novus. That concludes the hearing on 5697. The next bill we're going to hear is by Madam Chair, Representative Vella Wilkinson, and how about if we start in order with 5823, Residence of Children for School Purposes. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the Education Committee. I don't often have an opportunity to speak to all of you about the active duty military that serve in the state of Rhode Island or their families. Typically, we focus on veterans issues or even some of the retired military members who are living at the home. But I've got 3 sister bills today that I'm going to speak to you about that will have a direct impact on military families who are stationed in the great state of Rhode Island. For those of you who are unaware, military service members are routinely reassigned to their new duty stations during the summer, and that's due to mission and training requirements. As a result of these summer moves, they could potentially miss their child's school registration, as well as other important application dates that occur in the spring. Long-term negative impacts include having to shift their planned courses of study, which may require them to take courses in summer school or even force them to graduate later than their peers. Service members typically receive their official military orders detailing their upcoming assignment 90 days to 6 months prior to their move, allowing military families to enroll their children in school, register for classes, and apply for specialized programs at the same time as their peers prior to physically arriving to their location will help facilitate their uninterrupted educational progress and smooth integration into their new communities, relieving unneeded stress during their transition between locations. Allowing military orders to be accepted as proof of residency for the purpose of enrollment in our public schools by children of members of the armed forces is an approach that's been identified as a best practice for advanced enrollment by the Department of Defense. As of December of 2020, 19 states have adopted such policy, and we're talking about over 2,200 active duty military school-age children attending Rhode Island schools. So we are in a unique position to have a positive effect on the educational experiences of military children and their family by enacting this particular bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there any questions for Representative Vella Wilkinson on this? Yes, Representative Fenton Fung.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Vella Wilkinson, thank you so much. I think this is a much needed when we're talking about helping these families settle. The only question I have as to this bill and then another one of your sister bills coming up is when a family who's transferring into Rhode Island has a child with special needs, would any of these bills, and especially 5823 and 5824, have us own them a little bit earlier? I'm thinking of maybe a child with special needs who maybe needs a full-time nurse that sometimes schools are responsible for. Is there any added, what I'd say, a burden on a school system ahead of it by the way these bills are written? And since you seem to have some best practices from other states, how do they handle that? Thank you.
Representative, thank you very much for that particular question. I don't have that information at the tip of my fingers, but I will get it for you and the members of this committee as soon as I can.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Otherwise, I think it's fantastic, and thanks for the work you do.
Thank you. I can tell you that, according to my notes, there's no new online systems required, and the added benefit to school districts is reducing discrepancies between the projected and the actual student enrollment numbers for staffing purposes. But I don't have anything that speaks specifically to special needs children, and I'll get that for you.
Thank you again.
Shall I go on, Mr. Chairman?
Let me make sure there are no further questions for you. We do have Mr. Christopher Arnold, United States Department of Defense State Liaison Officer, on the phone. And Madam Chair, if it's all right with you, I'm going to have him ask him to comment on all three of your bills.
Absolutely, thank you.
So we have to call him back. Welcome, Mr. Arnold. Please proceed. Mr. Arnold? Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable committee members. The Department of Defense is grateful for the opportunity to support the policies reflected in House Bill 5823. I am Christopher Arnold, the Northeast Region Liaison at the United States Department of Defense State Liaison Office. The best way to describe this bill and this triad of military family-friendly bills is that they allow school administrators to do what their conscience would want them to do with the support of law. Although they could not be with you here today, Captain McIver, Commander at Naval Station Newport, and Pam Martin, the school liaison, have been so supportive of ensuring we address the need to alleviate the challenges military-connected students face due to constant moves during their K-12 education years. So we would like to thank Representative Vella Wilkinson and her co-sponsors for helping shepherd this important legislation through the House. And as Northeast Region Liaison, I stand ready to answer whatever questions you may have. Thank you.
Yes, Representative Fenton Fung.
Hi, Chris. I know we were supposed to have a meeting anyway next week, but I don't know if you heard my question earlier to Representative Vella Wilkinson. This has to do, my question is, when we're talking about families who have children with special needs, does the pre-registration kind of trigger a sequence of events where the accepting school system would then be responsible for their needs immediately? I'm thinking especially of children who need like full-time nursing staff.
Roger. So that's a fantastic question, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, also known as the MIC-3. That is an interesting compact that now all 50 states are members of, and the governor appoints a commissioner and a board, which also has one of your colleagues and member of the Senate, as well as a representative, Ms. Martin, from Naval Station Newport, and they meet monthly. And the MIC-3, as it's known colloquially, was set up to provide opportunities for assistance during transition So in terms of what you're talking about, exceptional family member programs, that is within their purview. So our best practice for advanced enrollment encompasses residency requirements for the purposes of registration. Once you established, that residency, EFMP is going to be under the Mixed 3 umbrella.
So I apologize because there's a lot of acronyms I'm still not completely familiar with at that point. So does that, or what you're saying basically is the accepting school system would then, of course, be accepting that cost under that, whatever you said, the triad there?
I think you said once residency is established.
So, but does this establish residency?
Yes, it establishes their residency for the purpose of enrollment.
Okay, I feel like we need a little more clarification here on this, on the impact that a local school system might have on this. And I think it might just be, I'm not as tremendously familiar, and I think you and I have a meeting anyway next week. So maybe we can try to flush this out and get us to a better place on this.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Mr. Arnold, was the way I understood it, once the service member establishes residency within the state, then the responsibility starts. Is that correct?
Correct. So once they would, in attendance at the school, absolutely. But for the purposes of this bill, we're talking about electronic registration. We're not talking about, program delivery, more so registration.
So the parents would be legal residents of the city or town where the student was going to school. Is that correct?
For the purposes of enrollment, yes.
Okay.
I think we'll flush this through individually outside of this. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Mr. Arnold, would you care to comment on the other bills that you're here for?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to just, sort of breeze through it in one call rather than going on 3 times. But that is to say that, Purple Star will be a badge of honor for a school and a district, and a recognition that a school or the district supports military families, that they will be welcomed and well supportive. And that is House Bill 5824. And as Pam Martin at the Naval Station was telling me, a couple of districts could pull this off by writing up what they already do. But this will create, a mechanism for districts around the state to demonstrate that they're military family friendly. And with respect to Bill 5825, Rhode Island will be one of the first states in the nation to offer specific language to help military children continue their education when moving from state to state through virtual education. So we are super grateful to Representative Bella Wilkinson for her leadership. And I'd also like to thank Ms. Martin from Naval Station Newport for all of her efforts in moving this legislation forward. So on behalf of the Department of Defense, we thank you for considering Bills 5823, 5824, and 5825, and respectfully pray for your favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Arnold? Thank you, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That concludes the hearing on 5823. How about 5824?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 5824 is an act relating to military affairs and defense. It's the Purple Star Rhode Island Dependent Education Act. Purple Star schools are military-friendly schools that have demonstrated a major commitment to students and families connected to our nation's military. Designated schools have met specific state-designed requirements to support the unique situations facing military students and their families. The legislation gives Rhode Island the potential to create a robust network of local, state, and national stakeholders and cultivate competency in the area of military-connected student transition, offering Rhode Island's Purple Star schools the opportunity to demonstrate their cultural fluency to parents and families. A Rhode Island Purple Star school is not only a badge of honor for the school and district, it's also recognition of an effort that signals to incoming families they will be welcomed and well supported. The Department of Defense is hopeful that our state will soon join the 11 states that have established a statewide Purple Star school policy since 2017. A study of 4 such programs by the Center for Public Research and Leadership at Columbia University reported that the Purple Star program is anchored by 2 parallel goals. First, building and recognizing the capacity of schools and districts to serve military-connected students and families. And second, helping families identify schools and districts that are best prepared to meet their needs. The report noted that as a local opt-in, the Purple Star program already gained traction with hundreds of school districts, while the majority of these districts already had programming in place for military-connected students before seeking the formal designation. Staff and faculties, indicated they've benefited from the Purple Star application process and the encouragement to refine and expand programming related to the program designation requirements. As our military members and their families move from state to state, providing for a smooth educational transition for their children, it's key to eliminating one of the largest concerns parents face. Purple Star is, of course, a bottom-up initiative that has no central governing body. So DOD identified as a best practice that states utilize their discretion to design and administer a statewide version of the program to ensure, efficaciousness through research-driven components. And they are set forth in House Bill 5824, so I'm not going to read them to you. As Rhode Island is already home to 3,514 active duty service members, 1,191 active duty spouses, and 2,210 active duty children as of 2021, it has the benefit of being able to draw upon existing expertise and engagement with existing stakeholders.
Very good, Representative. Are there any questions for members of the committee? Representative Caldwell, would you like to be recorded? Will the clerk, was she here, counted as present?
I was here, yeah.
Okay, just want to make
I
sure.
had a brief child care emergency, but I am back.
Okay, everything's okay. All right, very good. Thank you. So have there been complaints, Representative Bella Wilkinson, about the continuity of studies for military children in Rhode Island?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. Actually, quite a number of our districts have, and I don't say this in a disrespectful manner, a hodgepodge of services that they attempt to wrap around the military children. I had the opportunity to speak to the chairman of our own school district in Warwick to ask what, if anything, is being done for military families. And she has mentioned several things that are being done, but it's not a cohesive movement. So as things move in education in our state, and we have students that are transferring between schools and school districts, it makes sense to have something that is more unified. And especially as parents are making the decision of where they want to settle down within the state, what's going to be the best for their children, and also understanding that it is a school that recognizes the special needs of military children. Now, my son, of course, was a military brat. I was active duty while he was going to school. And he was very shy as a youngster because he was never in one place very, very long, you know. And so that's something that if it was a Purple Star school, I would have been able to make a decision in terms of, you know, where should I settle down? Where in Warwick? Where is the school that would be most attentive to his particular needs? And so that's the best that I could do for answering you. I mean, I don't have, to be honest with you, I do a lot of work in the veteran community, Chairman, but this is my first real aggressive move towards helping the active duty military members in our state.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions for Representative Vella Wilkinson? And we do have written testimony from the Department of Defense, Christopher Arnold, who you heard earlier, and John Ballantyne, Senior Vice President of Military Child Education Coalition, in support of this. So thank you very much. That concludes the hearing. Yes, Representative Phillips, yes.
Just want to make a comment, Chairman. Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson, thank you for putting this bill in. I also am a military brat. Okay. So I remember my father being stationed all over the place, from overseas to different states in the United States. So yeah, we moved all the time. I couldn't get friends. I couldn't, get a continuity. And then finally we ended up saying we're settling down and we're going to be staying here while my father travels the rest of the time. So I can understand where the kids are coming from and they feel lost. Mm-hmm. So thank you for putting this bill in.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman, should I continue with 5825?
Very good. That concludes the hearing on 5824. Please, 5825.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, virtual schools can help minimize disruptions in education during transitions. House Bill 5825 would enable military parents during reassignments to enroll their children in the Rhode Island Virtual School Network so that credits will transfer to their new location. The bill would allow military children to finish the school year by virtual learning. Virtual schools are an excellent solution for military families in terms of portability, long-distance involvement, access to rigorous curriculum, exciting electives, honors and AP courses, a flexible schedule, and parental involvement. Military service members are typically reassigned to new duty stations during the summer. However, they receive orders to move midterm. A family could anticipate this potential out-of-cycle relocation and register for virtual classes in Rhode Island during the transition semester. This option helps avoid receiving course incompletions that could prevent military students from graduating with their peers. Similarly, modifying eligibility criteria to enable military children to participate in a virtual school program while stationed in another state allows students transitioning mid-year from Rhode Island due to a military move, a method of maintaining education continuity. 34 states have state-governed public virtual school systems right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Representative Feng-Fung.
Thank you, Chairman. And Chairwoman, this kind of goes back to earlier questions I have when we're talking about the kids who need special education on this. If you could find out for me, and I don't expect you to have the answer off the top of your head, what happens if we're accepting a student mid-year and they're on an IEP somewhere else, and like the speech therapist, the physical therapist, everybody who will be accepting them never gets to see them in person, and how are we providing these services virtually? I'm sure, like you said, since there's 34 states that seem to be doing this ahead of us, what are their best practices? I think that could help prevent a few snags here. I'm sure this is a very small group that it is, but I think we have to kind of think ahead and make sure that there's some guidance in place. I'd love to know how other school systems are doing it. Okay?
Thank you very much for the question. I'll make sure that we get a concise listing of lessons learned.
And certainly very relevant with the amount of remote learning that's going on today. So, this really fits in with, I think, a post-pandemic approach to education that a lot of mobile families hopefully will be utilizing. Are there any further questions? And Christopher Arnold signed up again in support of this and has set written testimony in. Are there any further questions for Madam Chair Vella Wilkinson of the great city of Warwick? Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. 5825, that concludes the testimony. And now Representative O'Brien, I believe, is in the building. Yes. Representative O'Brien of the great town of North Providence. And Representative O'Brien, do you also have part of Providence? No. Just all North Providence? Yeah.
The great town of North
The great town of North Providence. Representative O'Brien, how about we start with 5354. Welcome. Please proceed.
Just trying to get this mic up and going. No, there we go. Which one is that, Chairman? Is that the...
An act relating to education, anti-bullying Bill of Rights.
That's the one I really wanted to come here and talk about. This bill is a game changer, Chairman, as you know. It's one of the major problems in this state and in the city that I work in and in the town that I represent is bullying. I mean, it's going across not just the state of Rhode Island, it goes across the entire country. This changes it to represent the victims more than the bullies. It comes with training of teachers and principals. It's a comprehensive response to systems that are not working for our kids right now. It's the toughest bill in the country for anti-bullying. It's the toughest, and it speaks for itself. I mean, you can read it. It's a bill that we need. We have regulations right now, but we haven't changed our anti-bullying state policy since 2012. It's long overdue to have a comprehensive review by the state police, the RIDE, state police, and the Attorney General. And this is what it does, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for your work on this, Representative O'Brien. I wrote the original anti-bullying statute, and you're right, it was
Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Chairman. I
decade
remember
ago.
that.
But you are 100% right. The culture and atmosphere in schools has changed so much due to electronics, the internet, cell phones, texting, and especially the worst possible outcome is the suicide of a student. And nothing is more devastating to a community than losing a student. And I know myself as an administrator, having been through it, it was horrendous. I have colleagues that have been administrators and simply were not be able to carry on afterwards. So it is devastating. But I think you're correct that a review of the entire statute, and especially the role that the internet plays, and it's become much more difficult for the kids, the teachers, administrators.
Yes, it does. And it is devastating to have even an attempted suicide, and it's something you never get over, and it's because of bullying. Bullying is too long. We transferred the victim out of the school instead of the bully. This makes victims' rights more important than the bully's rights. And the bully shouldn't stay. The victim, we should be protecting the victim. And that's what this also does. It protects victims more than the bully.
Okay. And do any representatives have questions? Representative Fenton Fung.
Thank you, Chairman O'Brien, for sure. Your passion on this is hard to dispute. I have a question. Outside of, I hear you right there saying that we're going to protect the victim more than the bully. What's another one or two things that you think this bill does that we're not currently doing?
Well, we haven't reviewed anything since 2012, but right now it's in regulation. This makes it in law.
Okay.
It makes it the law of the state of Rhode Island, and that's the most important thing.
Okay. And then the other thing, and I apologize, it's so comprehensive. I just tried going through again, making sure I didn't miss it. Is there any way that we're reaching out and kind of also educating the parents about it? I didn't see it in here. But I know that, we can, the schools do so much already, but for sure, when they go home and whatnot, is there any type of education or bringing the parents involved as well?
Well, it does mention that I have another piece of legislation that mentions the parents, but this is more for what the schools are responsible for.
Okay,
What
thank you.
the school and RIDE is responsible.
Okay, thank you so much.
And we do have several witnesses. Are there any further questions from members of the committee? The first witness is Miguel Figueroa.
He's good?
Welcome. Please proceed.
Hello?
Yes, welcome. Please proceed.
Okay. Glad that you can hear me. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Great. My name is Miguel Figueroa, and I'm speaking in opposition to H5354, the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. Though some sections of the bill seem like good steps to prevent bullying, I am concerned about the clause in the bill that makes disobeying school staff punishable by expulsion or suspension. I've been a student activist for a while, and I have seen language like this used before to stifle free speech. In my high school, there was an old rule that similarly classified disruptive protests on school grounds as truancy, and therefore made them punishable by suspension. It classified the act of organizing a protest as an incitation of truancy, and therefore made it even worse to be an organizer such as myself. After the National School Walkout, me and other activists in the March for Our Lives movement were threatened with suspension and expulsion, which I fear would happen more often under this bill. My high school's then administrators did not have legal power to stifle student activism at the time. With this bill, they would, so long as they were willing to broadly interpret misbehavior to include student activism. From the high schoolers getting arrested at lunch counters during the civil rights movement to environmentalists getting arrested at the Rhode Island State House in support of the Green New Deal, students have a long history of social activism in this country and in countries the world over. Our First Amendment rights don't disappear when we walk through the front doors of our school.
Okay.
Besides, I haven't even gotten into how this rule will probably be used by discriminatory administrations to target non-white and or LGBT plus students even more often than usual. Suspension disproportionately harms black people like apparently everything else in this country. Or hearing impaired or mentally disabled students. They might be perceived to be misbehaving when they're really just hearing impaired or mentally disabled. I'm not making that up. You can talk to any student. Everyone's seen it happen. I love the idea of preventing bullying, but this bill really should be tweaked to reach its goal more effectively, and to do so without infringing on students' rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. Are there any questions for Miguel? Thank you very much. Next.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Or not a question, a comment. Miguel, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hi, it's Justine Caldwell. How are you?
Oh, hi.
It's good to hear from you. So Miguel is a student here in my district. So I wanted to say thank you so much for calling in. You are a phenomenal student activist and an advocate on behalf of your classmates. And I also know how much you care about protecting people from being bullied at school as well. So it is really valuable to hear your input. And thank you for taking the time to read the bill and to call in with your thoughts. They're really valuable.
Of course. I appreciate you saying that about me, though. I was talking to a group of friends, and we were all rather concerned about this. Like, it isn't just me who's interested in this bill. A lot of the other students at my school are interested in the implications about this.
Great, thank you. You guys can reach out to me and we could talk about it, and we could maybe facilitate something with Representative O'Brien.
Okay.
Are there any further questions for Miguel? Miguel, thank you very much for your testimony. And Representative Caldwell gets extra credit for a cat participation today. You get the award. Very good.
Participation is a kind word, but thank you.
Welcome.
Great, thank you.
Please proceed.
You guys can reach out to me and we could talk about it, and we could maybe facilitate something with Representative O'Brien.
We can't hear her.
Are there any further questions?
Wendy Becker, could you please start again? Welcome.
Representative Caldwell gets extra credit for a cat.
We can't hear her.
Participation is a kind word.
Hello?
Yes, welcome. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair McNamara and members of the committee, I appreciate your time. I'm a professor of social work at Rhode Island College, a Cranston resident, and testifying on behalf of LGBTQ Action RI, an advocacy organization working to secure equity for LGBTQ Rhode Islanders. And we're testifying in opposition to the bill. We agree very much with the sentiment behind the bill. We find bullying abhorrent and agree with the bill sponsor that it must be taken seriously. In fact, so often the students being bullied are targeted due to their gender identity or expression or sexual orientation or perceived sexual orientation. We couldn't agree more that we need to create school cultures that are full of respect and nurturance, where bullying is named and reduced. However, we believe this bill is just too broad and too punitive. Although it is seeking to ensure a consistent and unified statewide approach, we know that strict bullying policies are not effective and not applied equitably. Lots of the research show that they differentially impact students of color, as the young man was saying, and are far more likely to be punished. Bullies are far more likely to be punished with suspensions and expulsions if they are black for similar offenses to white students. And unfortunately, these widespread racial disparities have long-term consequences for future success for these students. So LGBT Action RI opposes this anti-bullying policy that could have unintended consequences, again, even though we are often the targets of the bullying. Yes, bullying needs to be taken seriously, but let's do it with trauma and culturally informed education, with restorative justice, peer conflict resolution programs, and increased behavioral health services. Thanks so much.
Are there any questions? Yes, Representative Fenton Fung.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks so much for your testimony, and I know your passion on this issue and your expertise for sure. A question for you. Is there any school system here that you see is doing this well, especially when it comes to the LGBT community?
You know, there really are. School systems are quite varied, and there are systems who do it well and spend a lot of time on it and educate faculty and students and have an open conversation about both bullying in general and targeting LGBTQ students in particular. So, yes, it ranges.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I recently spoke to a student at Cranston East, a member of the Gay Straight Alliance, and she mentioned she had several concerns regarding the school community. And, you know, I agree, Wendy, we have to do a lot more work in that area. Are there any further questions?
Oh, I really don't have a question, but maybe just a comment.
Yes, Representative Dio. Please proceed.
All right, so Rep. O'Brien, thank you for introducing this bill. I think like the fundamental thing about within the school department, various schools district within the state, I think one of the things that that created much more of a problem, because when it's come to bullying within schools, it's very difficult for I would take my rep hat on and put my principal's hat on, like administrators. It's very, very tough to kind of work to find, as Rep. O'Brien said, most oftentimes the victim usually the one that's been a word. The parents just say, you know what, I'm fed up with this, and we're going to probably leave the school and go somewhere else. And because of the system that is within each school district, because the process in which that you have to go through, because when these things happen, when it's been reported, you have to go, get, looking at it, looking at fast findings and see exactly. And nowadays, what we observe in schools across, let's say matter like inner city, like a Providence or whatever, Barrington or whatever, what we've noticed now, the principals, as we discuss with these each other, is oftentimes this is all become is a huge social media issue nowadays. So that's where most especially that's where the bullying takes place now, from a social media perspective.
I agree.
Back in the days, you could probably get kids where in the building have bullying case, but now the social media has played a very, very major role in in bullying piece. So I think that's one part that we have to probably take a look at to see exactly how we can help and solidify that area. I think that's the key, because I mean it's become a very serious problem now when it comes to social media piece and bullying.
I agree, Representative Via. I know that I used to dread Monday mornings because, you know, in the old days when you had a high school basketball game, you went, you saw, you'd have a good idea of what the atmosphere and what was going on in the school. But then when the internet came in and these cell phones and the amount of texting, you can walk in on a Monday morning and a whole group has been traumatized. There are situations that are really out of control. Sometimes they're with school students and their associates in the community. So it becomes very, very complex, and it's made it difficult for administrators, teachers, certainly counselors. Representative Fenton Fung?
Yeah, no, this is almost a question for Representative Via. The question is, in Providence, I'm not sure, I know in Cranston we use a lot of school resource officers to help target some of the internet things. It's like, you know, if there's something going on at night, they're already intervening sometimes at that point. How is it typically going in Providence right now? What's your line of attack?
From so now, because I think our school district have like a code of conduct, and like within the code of conduct, like there's a section in there with bullying the process and steps exactly how, you know, which process in which we have to go, like steps we have to follow. But now and this is where the SRO comes play a key role in buildings, and which is a whole different discussion that there's a whole different discussion. But this is the relationship that the SRO plays, that when these kind of things happen and get into that to help to kind of solve this problem. But oftentimes, like kids use are just forgetting like some of the social media they use, because it takes sometimes 24 hours that automatically that posting is not there anymore. So, and kids will see that, except you take a snapshot of that, and this is what's going on. So they will bully someone online, but then have it evidence now, because we also have to be careful, because that's the fine line as a administrator we have to walk dealing with this stuff, because we're dealing with both families. So we're calling the parent, telling them that your child is being bullied, and calling the parent, telling them the child is the bully. So you have to have, that's the fine line we have to walk, and you need to have enough facts before you call the parent and say your child is the bully. So, and I think that is the key. I think that's the fine line that and when it comes to social media piece, and if we don't have enough of those, and that's the piece overall that is kind of make that difficult for as administrator as a whole.
Great, I appreciate your input.
Absolutely. Are there any further questions?
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes, sure.
Oh, great, thank you. Sorry, I'm also trying not to find a too sunny spot. I'm like struggling in this evening here. I appreciate this conversation so much, and the point about social media. In my experiences right now with having a kindergartner and a third grader, Chairman Rep. O'Brien is so right that it really affects the victim a lot more than the bully, in terms of maybe we will go to another school, maybe we will do something about that, and we have to move. But what I want to say about the social media piece, and just to add into this conversation, is that what I'm experiencing and what the teachers and administrators at my children's school say is that they're actually seeing bullying happening at so much more younger ages now than they did in previous years. So even in my son's third grade class, this is like a major problem, and these kids are 8 and 9. And so I think as we think about relooking at these Bill of Rights and rethinking about the policies we would like schools to adopt, and we have this general conversation, we really have to start including our youngest students.
Definitely.
In those conversations, which is very sad. It's really devastating to watch. And then the effects that has on younger kids, that they're going to have, no matter what school they go to. These kind of defense mechanisms that they start to have as in reaction to that bullying happens with kids in, such lower grades now. So I think that should be a crucial part of the conversation. And it feels like kids are growing up so fast and nowadays. And, social media, it happens to them younger and younger. So I really appreciate this conversation and hope we can think about our littlest kids in it as well.
Thank you, Representative Caldwell. It's so sad. I think it's awful what the younger kids have to go through. Any further questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Becker. Andy Andrade.
Thank you.
Mr. Andrade. Please proceed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Andy Andrade from RIDE. I'm going to begin by commending Rep. O'Brien for his advocacy and passion on this issue. Very important issue. RIDE, I'm going to give you a little bit of context. RIDE does have a long history working with the General Assembly on the subject of bullying. In 2011, we passed the Safe Schools Act, and Chairman, as you mentioned, based on that, we passed the state bullying policy, which you were very obviously instrumental in. I want to make sure that people know that more recently, the General Assembly passed in 2019 a threat assessment team bill, and the charge of that legislation was that each local school committee would adopt written policies for their establishment of threat assessment teams, including the assessment and intervention with individuals whose behavior may pose a threat to the safety of school or staff, and with model policies developed by the Rhode Island School Safety Committee. I want to mention the Rhode Island School Safety Committee, Chairman, because I don't think many people know about this committee. It is led by Rhode Island State Police Captain Derek Borak. I'm proud to be a member of that committee. We worked on this particular document, and the committee has a diverse group of members from law enforcement, fire, EMA, school building directors, superintendents, and other professionals. And we developed this comprehensive implementation guide. I actually have sent the copy of the statewide bullying policy and this threat assessment team guidance to all members of the committee. And I invite all of you to look at those documents. You'll see that Rhode Island has a very comprehensive approach to bullying. Having said that, Rep. O'Brien and Chairman and members of the committee, you're correct that we certainly could update the statewide policy that was initiated in 2012, and we would certainly welcome the opportunity to work with Rep. O'Brien to update that and incorporate some of the issues that he has in this particular legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Any questions for Mr. Andrade? It sounds like a good idea, Representative O'Brien. Yes. To work with them. Thank you. Stephanie Mius. Welcome. Please proceed.
Okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie Muse. I'm a Rhode Island educator here today to testify in opposition of House Bill 5354. While I think that I support the general spirit of the legislation, I take serious issue with Section 6.110.9, titled Causes for Suspension, Expulsion of Pupils. Not only does this section of the bill seem entirely out of place for what the legislation claims to intend to do, it also doesn't in any way, shape, or form match current research about school discipline policies. So this section of the bill states that any pupil who is guilty of continued and willful disobedience or of open defiance of the authority of any teacher or person having authority over him, or the habitual use of profanity or obscene language, etc., shall be liable to punishment and suspension or expulsion from school. And this gives schools really broad stroke permission to suspend a student for pretty much anything. So I can test then, and I think that current research supports that this bill would actually make schools less safe. It's a well-researched fact that suspension nationwide disproportionately targets minorities, and that students who get suspended are more likely to drop out or to become involved in the criminal justice system later in life. Black students get disciplined more harshly and more often than their white classmates for the same kind of misbehavior, and that's a really well-researched fact that happens nationwide. So in the past few years, more than half of the U.S. states have actually passed laws to reduce suspensions, not increase them. So
this law just doesn't match the best research. And I think it's in the best interest of the students and schools of Rhode Island that when we pass legislation or write legislation pertaining to education, we make sure that it actually does match the most recent research. And for instance, the idea of like youth suicide in regards to bullying was brought up. And I just wonder, like, what does the Rhode Island Youth Suicide Prevention Project say about the link between bullying and suicide? And is it really true that the strongest bullying law in the country would have a positive impact on that? Or is that just your guess and general feeling about what might happen? And then lastly, I really want to question the purposes of lines 7 to 9 in the same section, which really does nothing pertaining to bullying, but instead seems to intend to suppress students' ability to participate in an organized protest in or out of school during school hours, when really what we should be encouraging young Rhode Islanders to do is to be more involved, not discouraging them with broad stroke threats of suspension for inciting truancy or for unauthorized occupancy. So I strongly encourage the House Education Committee to reconsider the inclusion of that section in this piece of legislation before passing. And I also want to go on record as saying that I think that Rep. O'Brien's enthusiasm about the bill is great, but I also heard enthusiasm about getting the state police involved in this education bill. And even on an anti-bullying one, I think that desire is really questionable at best. And I wonder if there's maybe another member of the committee who's more ready to take on the task of writing a bill that is trauma-informed and restorative.
That's 2 minutes.
Sure, I'm done.
With all
Thank
due
you.
respect, the state police have been involved in the anti-bullying laws and regulations, just like the RIDE just mentioned, for the past 12 years. So I don't know
Sure,
what
and I
she's
think that
talking
lots
about.
of-
And also, can I ask you one question? Do you even care about the victims? Do you?
Yeah, of course I care about the victims. I'm a teacher
So
in
you're
Rhode
saying
Island.
there's
Of course
no,
I care about victims.
I'm asking the questions now. I reclaim my time. So you're telling me there is no connection between bullying and suicide in our school systems. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said.
That's
not
exactly
what I
what
said.
you just
I
said.
said
All right.
And I have no further questions.
Yeah, okay,
not what
thank
I
you,
said.
thank you. Thank you, Ms. Muse. Any further questions for Ms. Muse? Thank you very much. Hannah Stern, ACLU. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee, for your time this afternoon. My name is Hannah Stern. I'm testifying on behalf of the ACLU of Rhode Island in opposition to this legislation. We certainly understand the desire to address the issue of bullying. It's a critical issue, but we do agree with what previous testimonies have also noted, which is the concern that the implementation of such extremely broad and punitive disciplinary measures do disproportionately affect students of color, students with disabilities, and LGBTQ students. We submitted detailed written testimony, but I'd also like to briefly just point out two specific areas of concern. First, previous testimonies have commented on the broad number of really vague and subjective offenses that students could be suspended under, but it's also important to note that the provisions within this bill would actually directly contradict and undermine our current laws on out-of-school suspensions, which are in place specifically to curb the over-suspension of students. So this concerningly would only encourage and promote the existence of the school-to-prison pipeline. Second, this legislation would pretty explicitly and expansively engage law enforcement officers in these bullying intervention programs. If bullying is a problem on the school's campus, students really do need personnel who are appropriately trained and cognizant of the unique social emotional needs of students, not law enforcement personnel who could inappropriately redefine such adolescent behaviors into issues of criminal justice. So overall, we find that this bill is just far too broad. We're highly concerned about the negative impact that such expansive measures could have on marginalized students, and we urge rejection of the legislation. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Stern. Any questions from Ms. Stern? Thank you. And last but not least, Suzanne Arena. Please proceed.
Hi. Thank you. So I'm calling, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to commend Rep. O'Brien. This is something that decoding dyslexia parents have come to us, whether they have ADHD or many learning disabilities. And our children, I know somebody had said that, I'm seeing that it starts very early. It does. Bullying does start early for kids that have disabilities. It'll start around 2nd to 3rd grade and then go through the middle school. And so we have a lot of students that are bullied, and what they do is they turn around and their behaviors change, and they're often actually suspended. And myself included with my child, I never got a notice from my grade school in Cranston. There was nothing. And so these kids are being sent home. So there always has to be some sort of paper trail that these kids actually have a clear idea of why they're getting suspended for bullying. I do think that bullying, and the research that I've seen for bullying in Canada and restorative justice and some of the other research, does support the first time a child is brought in for bullying. You bring in the parents from both sides. They bring in usually a police officer that works in the school, or and the school psychologist. It's a big accountability for all sides. It works. And I think that scaring the hell out of people, actually, just like little kids, when somebody in my household does something, they have the fear. It's good to have fear, because it keeps them sometimes honest that they're not going to do it again, and push and jump on little Johnny's back because he stutters in class for whatever reason. So I think the bill has a lot of really good pieces to it. I do feel that, listening to some of the folks that have just spoken, that there are some areas that we could tighten up. I will say that the peak middle school, like third to sixth grade, shows the highest percentage. And when you start hearing that adults with learning disabilities still have a 46%
That's 2 minutes.
higher. Really? Okay. And in conclusion, the people with learning disabilities that are people of color are going to be that much more bullied on top of things. So I think that we not only need to educate the state, but we have superintendents that I've been in meetings with saying that they didn't know bullying was horsing around that they broke a kid's finger, or he asked for it. So we really have to educate everyone. There's a lot to this, and I really am happy to see that we're putting this forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Suzanne Arena, Decoding Dyslexia, Rhode Island? Thank you, Dyslexia. Thank you very much, Suzanne. And
thank you.
Laura Marie Pesicati has Mental Health Association Rhode Island has signed up opposed. Jordan Goyette would like an amendment. Patrice Cozio is opposed. And Rhode Island School Superintendents Association, Mr. Tim Ryan, is also opposed. That concludes the hearing on 5354. The next bill we're going to hear is 5355, an act relating to education, Bill of Rights, the Teachers' Bill of Rights. Representative O'Brien, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. It's always a pleasure to come before you, right?
Pleasure's all ours.
Just wanted to, this is a bill that I put in because principals in certain school districts are trying to change. Teachers have certain rights, professional rights. They should be respected. One of the main ones, which is in here, and you can read all of them, but the main one to me is you can't force a teacher to change a grade. And just because might be a state rep, or it might be the mayor's son. If the kid didn't do the work, and you have the curriculum, you have your rubrics, back up the grade, that teacher should not be able to be forced to change a grade. And you should be respected. You shouldn't be screamed at in your classrooms. So this is a Bill of Rights. This has been passed by many states. I didn't reinvent the wheel. So this has been passed by Tennessee and certain other states. And it just treats teachers as a professional, And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I think that's interesting, Representative O'Brien, the changing of the grade, especially the worst time for that was, I think, with No Child Left Behind, where we had schools where an administrator that one of my colleagues, and was an excellent principal, because of 1 point on an English grade, lost his position. And the interesting thing is he went from an urban school in one of our core cities to like Newton.
Yeah.
And got a raise, highly effective. All of his ratings were highly effective, but because of that one data point, which was 1 grade, and yeah, that was it. He was gone.
Yeah.
But you know, in 37 years, very rarely saw it or heard the discussion relating to that. Have you heard many teachers complaining about being forced to change grades?
Pressured.
Pressured?
Very pressured all over the state, Chairman.
Wow.
I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, to be true.
Right.
But you know, people who are in power think they can always push people around.
Any questions for Representative O'Brien? Thank you. We have Hannah Stern from Rhode Island ACLU. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman McNamara, members of the committee, again for your time this afternoon. My name is Hannah Stern. I'm testifying on behalf of the ACLU of Rhode Island in opposition to this legislation. We definitely understand the importance of promoting academic freedom and encouraging teacher freedom of speech, but this bill could, we believe, in many ways, infringe on the constitutional rights of other students and teachers. So one example in particular, we've submitted written testimony, but I'll just mention one particular example, which is that this bill allows for teachers to present with really no limitation ideas concerning the physical, biological world. This language could invite the teaching of, for example, creationism, which would be a direct violation of the First Amendment. So ultimately, the language in this bill is broad enough that we're concerned that as it seeks to give rights to teachers, it could also deny or infringe upon the rights of others. So we do urge rejection of this legislation. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Stern. Any questions for Ms. Stern? Next, Mr. James Parisi, Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Healthcare Professionals. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Jim Parisi with the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals. I'm here in support of Representative O'Brien's bill, and we appreciate his support of teacher rights. While this bill would certainly codify rights and conditions for public school teachers, we believe it also benefits student learning and certainly supports the profession of teaching. Section 1 expands the definition of teacher to make it more in line with who is in our teacher bargaining unit, so we support that. And Section 2 has 19 different categories of teacher rights. We support all 19 categories. Some of the more important ones are a safe and healthy school environment, and how important is that in this day and age? That's on page 1, line 13. Having a work environment free of bullying and harassment, not being coerced to change grades, something you've just spoken about. There's some other provisions in there about having academic freedom on page 2, as well as having the authority to appropriately discipline students. All of these together we think are important rights that are necessary to demonstrate respect for the teaching profession. We think Representative O'Brien has found a means to legislate professional autonomy with the introduction of this bill, and we support it. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Mr. Parisi? Thank you very much, Mr. Parisi.
Thank you, Chair.
Also, with written testimony, the ACLU, Jordan Goyette, in support of this bill, Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, Brian Daniels opposed, Rhode Island Superintendents Association also opposed. That concludes the hearing on 5355. The next bill we're going to hear is Chairman Amore out there and available.
I am here, Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Okay, how about 5522? Access to
Yes,
advanced placement.
thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. This bill would just ensure that the community college, Rhode Island College, and the University of Rhode Island would accept advanced placement scores of 3 or better. Right now in our high schools in Rhode Island, we have EEP courses, early enrollment courses, that do not have a fee associated with the testing. They're accepted widely at those 3 colleges. In fact, I don't know of any of those courses that are not accepted at those colleges, but there are a few courses, AP courses, that have not been accepted or they haven't been taken as credit in a track, an educational track. They've been taken as credit in an elective. And we just want to make sure that students who do the hard work of successfully completing an AP course and getting a score of 3 or better can get that college credit when they move on to the community college, Rhode Island College, and URI. And to be fair, most of the area of concern is with the university, and we have talked to them about this quite a bit, and I think there's probably a solution, but we don't want to discourage our high school students from challenging themselves with advanced placement courses and succeeding by getting that 3 and then not having that accepted. I can tell you firsthand that my oldest daughter, Tess, saved an entire semester at American University because of her accumulated AP credit. So this isn't only a bill to move students forward, it's a bill to save parents like me significant dollars in their children's college education. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to take any questions from the committee at this time.
Thank you, Chairman Amore. You can't see now, I'm just smiling with that story of your daughter saving, the semester, and it's so true. My son was in a similar situation, so he called me, he said, Dad, I've got my degree because I've graduated, I've completed everything, but he said, I'd like to take a couple of graduate courses, and I know one of them was casino management, and it was just, it came with a week in Foxwoods behind the scene, so it ended up being, it was great, but he ended up doing very well. It's tough to say no to your children sometimes, Representative Amore.
It is.
You are right.
It
has the potential of saving a lot of money, but,
That's true.
He enjoyed it, was a good student. Yes, Representative
Sounded
Phillips.
like a good course.
Yeah, I know, it was. It was unbelievable. The teacher was a Boston College professor who was taking a sabbatical, and he taught that one course at the University of New Hampshire. Representative Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Amore, on these AP courses, you said there's a couple or 3 that aren't accepted at the university or the colleges.
If you're accepted into certain programs at URI, some of these 3 scores have not been accepted in certain programs because the university indicates that it does not match up with their definition of what that course is. So we want to make sure that it's accepted, first of all, and that maybe that can be reviewed, and I'm willing to change the legislation or amend it so that there's a review process to see if the curriculum and the score meet the criteria for that particular program.
So thank you that was my question, is why are they saying they're not accepting it? Is it because the curriculum isn't the same, or is it just the titling of the AP course doesn't match up with what they have as a titling at the college level?
Yeah, and that's, I think that's the crux of the opposition that they have to accepting carte blanche. But if you look at the rest of the country and state schools, it's pretty commonplace to accept 3s or better on the advanced placement and tie it into an actual course that leads to a degree, because these are our entry level, 100 level college courses, and you have to pass a standardized test, a national standardized test. So there is proof. The EEP courses that are so popular, and they're great, and our instructors are great, and Rhode Island does a great job with them. But that's up to the instructor as to whether or not that student passes. There is not a national test that measures those courses, and I'm not advocating for that, but I am saying that we do have a measurement here that's in place that's nationally accepted.
Thank you, Rep. Amore. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions for, yes, Representative Donovan.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Rep. Amore, for putting this in. And I also have a similar story for two of my children. My first daughter was able to have a double major, which was really important for her career because of the AP courses being accepted. And my second daughter was able to graduate on time. She had an illness when she was in college.
Wow.
And not only did she get to graduate on time, she saved, a whole semester of tuition, which is quite a lot of money. So, it was quite nice that the colleges that they attended took all their AP credits. And so I hope this can be put in place for all kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Representative Amore? Thank you very much. And our first witness is Susanna McGurk from the College Board. Please proceed. Please proceed. There's a problem with the...
Hello, this is Suzanne.
It's Suzanne. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm Suzanne McGurk, Senior Director, AP Higher Ed Policy with the College Board, and I'm very pleased to support this bill as it provides an opportunity to ensure students who score a 3 and higher on AP exams will receive credit at the public post-secondary education institutions in Rhode Island. This will allow students and parents the ability to plan their AP courses and exams in conjunction with a firm expectation of receiving credit. Without a statewide policy, institutions could change their awards without notice, undoing all the hard work and planning. Research shows that students who score a 3 on at least one AP exam are more likely to enroll in college, major or minor in the area of their exam, persist to graduation, and are more likely to graduate on time. All the research we conduct and math that we collaborate on with partner institutions is based on students who score 3 and how they perform in the next course. It is fundamental to the success of the AP program and, more importantly, the success of students that a score of 3 means students will be successful in the next course. The research bears this out time and again. AP students with scores of 3 are as successful or more successful than students who take the introductory courses. Another important item to note is that 55% of all students who score a 3, 4, or 5 on AP exams in Rhode Island score a 3. When scores of 3 are not awarded for credit at institutions, many students are left out of the opportunity for credit, and low-income and underrepresented students suffer disproportionately. In Rhode Island, 65% of low-income students who score a 3, 4, or a 3. This figure is 74% of African-American students and 55% for Hispanic students. For these students especially, please consider moving this bill forward. I appreciate your time today and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Are there any questions for Suzanne? Thank you. Paige Claudius Parks, Rhode Island Kids Count. She's all set? Thank you. She's in support of this. Seth Dixon, Rhode Island College Political Science Department. Welcome. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Seth Dixon. I am a geography professor at Rhode Island College. I am also a test developer for working for AP, and I've worked intimately with these exams for the last 15 years. And as my third scenario, I've been working as now a parent with children in this program. And as I've looked at those 3 different issues as a parent as a professor at Rhode Island College, and as well as looking deeply with these programs and working with educators around the state of Rhode Island, I think this is going to be a win for all three categories. Many things that are included in this bill, especially the ability to have for students to be able to get all of this information, will be a great benefit for them, as well as the programs at Rhode Island College. I understand that there might be some difficulties with some people afraid about them getting maybe specific major requirements for a particular degree. But I definitely think that if you get a 3 on the AP exam, which is something that's already certified, and finding ways to have them recertified, not necessary, but at least that they would get general credit, not necessarily for a major program. That would be a way to allow the programs at URI, RIC, and CCRI to be able to craft their program in a way they see fit, but to allow general credit to be able to acknowledge a lot of the work that has already been done ahead of time. I think that there's a lot of things that we can see with this particular bill, and I appreciate your time in letting me be able to say that as someone who's worked with producing these exams, that there is, it's a great asset that we would be, I think, remiss to just dismiss out of hand.
Thank you, Professor Dixon. Are there any questions for Professor Dixon of Rhode Island College Political Science Department? Thank you. Patrick Crowley, NEARI. Mr. Crowley, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Patrick Crowley. On behalf of NEA Rhode Island, we are here to support Representative Amore's Bill 5522. We want to thank the representative and all of the co-sponsors for putting forward this important piece of legislation. Advanced placement courses are an excellent opportunity for promising students to earn college credit while they are still in high school. More importantly, in this bill, the linkages between the K-12 system and the Rhode Island public higher education system are an important way to encourage students not only to enroll in advanced classes, but to look to Rhode Island public higher education as their destination for their college career. And for those reasons, we think the bill is very important and we would urge passage. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Are there any questions for Mr. Crowley? Thank you. Susan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also scheduled to testify on Bill 5625.
Well,
I can testify now,
that's
or I
next.
can
Yeah, sure. Testify now, Mr. Crowley. That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, on behalf of NEA Rhode Island, we are in strong support of Representative Cortman's Bill 5625, the Climate Literacy Act. We think the time is now to take bold action in the state of Rhode Island to address climate change, and we need to institutionalize the idea that every single one of us has a role to play in making Rhode Island more climate resistant. By incorporating climate literacy into our curriculum, it is our hope that we will have generations of students who are ready to do what they can to help Rhode Island make a just transition to a green economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Susan Arena has signed up and supports this legislation, and Mr. Tim Ryan of the Rhode Island Superintendents Association also supports this legislation. That concludes the hearing on 5522. The next bill that we're going to hear is by Representative Cortman. That is House Bill 5625. Welcome, Representative. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to Patrick Crowley and thank you committee members. I'm here to introduce the Climate Literacy Act, H5625. This is the third time that I've come before the Education Committee, formerly HEW, with similar legislation. In the past, we've come before you with a resolution, but this year this is a bill that would implement climate literacy and infuse it through K through 12. We have attempted to stagger the implementation to give RIDE the time it needs for thoughtful development and dissemination of materials across the courses. We start out with science, civics, and social studies, and then further on in the implementation phase in English and math. I wanted to share a story of that happened to me just this morning. I was online with students from the local high school. I did 3 different classes with them, social study classes, and in 2 of the classes we discussed this bill, and overwhelmingly they were enthusiastically supportive of the idea. But there was one student that came before the camera to tell me that she didn't believe in climate change. And that kind of makes me sad, but also brings me back to why this is important, because we need to have a foundational understanding of what climate change is. We can argue the politics about how we're going to deal with it, but the foundation of whether it exists or not, that is something that we should be studying in science class, and kids should be empowered with facts. So that made me sad and concerned and makes me think this is even more important. I am glad that Rhode Island has adopted the new generation science standards, which does address climate change, but this seeks to go further than that. And there's an October 2020 report from the National Center for Science Education and the Texas Freedom Network Education Fund, and they also recommend, that's the recommendation, is that the new generation science standards are great, but that we should really be having teachers across the curriculum talk about climate change with students. And so I think students and parents and educators all want this. And with that, I will yield to the callers that I think have.
Are there any questions for Representative? Yes, Representative Fenton Fung.
Thanks, Representative, for your leadership here on this. I'd love for you to explain some parts of this bill a little bit more to me. When we're talking about the bill separates out how to incorporate climate change into this history and civics, and then there's another one down below about math and I'm sorry, I'm trying to find exactly math and English language arts. So it kind of like separates it out into tiers and whatnot. Was there a specific reason you did that, or I know you mentioned that we've already adopted some of this in science curriculum. Is your goal to have every single class talk about climate and have a curriculum for every single subject area?
Well, it would be infused, and we want teachers to become comfortable talking about it, and as they come upon it, as they're able to implement it into the other subject matter that they're teaching. For instance, English classes now, there's a real emphasis on nonfiction reading, so maybe some of the nonfiction reading is on science, something on climate change. It could be, we're trying not to be overly prescriptive, but we were also trying to give RIDE time to work with a broad variety of environmentalists, environmental educators, and others to implement it. And so we just didn't want to force it all on RIDE at one time. We wanted to be respectful.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
We thought that rollout made the most amount of sense.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Yes, Representative Caldwell.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Courtfriend. I really love this bill. I had a formative experience in high school reading the Sand County Almanac, which I used to always make my students read to think about the environment and how we affect the world around us. My comment is related to Representative Fenton Fung's, because one of my favorite parts of it is that education would be infused into all different parts of the school day and parts of our curriculum. As a humanities scholar, I guess I would say, there is so much great, even fiction, written about climate change and the effects that it has, especially on young people. And one of the best ways that we learn is through stories of other people, fictional or otherwise. And so I think that is really one of the best parts of it, because, the earth and the environment is a key part in all of our lives, and it affects all of us and everything. And so making sure that students are able to see that in various parts of their day and not just in science class and think it's kind of something they have to learn and something they have to understand rather than being an organic part of their everyday life, I think is really wonderful, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Rep. Caldwell. I agree with you. I think some of the best projects I've seen have come through art classes, and that can start at a very young age. So I agree with you. 100%.
Are there any further questions for the sponsor? The first witness that we have is Janine Silversmith. Welcome. Please proceed.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Janine Silversmith, and I represent the Rhode Island Environmental Education Association, or REIA, and I'm asking you to support House Bill 5625, the Climate Literacy Act. It is almost certain that we are leaving the planet in worse shape than we got it, and I feel we have a moral obligation to equip our young people with the skills and knowledge to meet this challenge. Climate change is the defining issue of our time, and policymakers are putting most of their energy into technological advances, but my question is, where is the investment in human capital? We are failing in our understanding of climate change, quite literally. The Yale Project on Climate Change Communication studied what Americans understand about how the climate system works and found that more than half of us receive an F, a failing grade. So only about 8% of us have the knowledge equivalent to an A or B, and large majorities of us incorrectly think that the hole in the ozone layer and aerosol cans contribute to global warming and believe that stopping rockets from punching holes in the ozone layer is a viable solution to climate change. So to say that our understanding of climate change has room for improvement is an understatement. And this knowledge is not just for knowledge's sake. Those technological advances I referenced, the changing needs of Rhode Island's tourism, agriculture, fishing industries, well, we need to equip our emerging workforce with the skills and knowledge to be competitive in this new and growing green economy. And to keep our graduates here in Rhode Island, here to manage our wind farms and install solar arrays and sustainably harvest our calamari and so much more. So no matter what field or trade our young people enter, understanding climate change will help them be successful. And it will help Rhode Island be a healthier and more equitable and better place to live. Students, teachers, parents in this state, almost 80% of those surveyed want climate change education in our schools. Environmental ed provides transformative learning experiences that are shown to improve academic performance,
that is 2
including
minutes.
test scores. I will finish up quickly.
In conclusion.
In conclusion, environmental education is good education. It builds critical thinking skills, personal growth, and life-building skills like confidence and autonomy, and it helps our citizenry understand and embrace the important environmental policies enacted by this General Assembly. So we are very much in support of H5625, the Climate Literacy Act, and we urge you to pass this important legislation to the floor for a vote.
Thank you. For the other witnesses, there is no opposition to this. Please try to observe the 2-minute limit, and if you have more to say, we can always accept written testimony. Crystal Nousseau, please proceed. Please proceed. Crystal? Please proceed.
This is an important message regarding your current Chase credit card account.
Pick the prescription up at CVS. Tell them I'll be there after this meeting. Thank you. How about if we, Crystal? How about Hank Webster? Hank Webster? Okay. Is this Hank? Who's Hank?
Yeah.
Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair McNamara. I'll be brief.
My name is Hank Webster. I am the Rhode Island Director of Acadia Center, and we are a clean energy nonprofit research and advocacy organization. And so I just wanted to testify in support of this bill. I think that it is incredibly important to provide this type of educational curriculum to students of a younger age, because while we're working to address problems with the climate and environment right now, we know that it's going to be very effective to also make sure that the next generation understands the issues and the impacts of all of our decisions. And there's incredible enthusiasm amongst this current generation that's going through school and future generations. I've had the opportunity to be involved with a program called Hack, a global hackathon for pollution and environment, and it's just really key to give these students the opportunities and the support to pursue these interests. But what I like most about this bill is also that there's a focus or consideration, thoughtful consideration of identifying and helping with career paths in this field. That's incredibly helpful, and the earlier that people can get access to the information about the type of curriculum and courses that they need, or skills training or certifications to work in the many jobs that this field has to offer, the better. So just want to echo what earlier folks have said on preparing our workforce for tomorrow, and be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Are there any questions for Mr. Webster? Thank you. Abigail Madden? Oh, Crystal Nusso, welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Crystal Neuser, and I'm a resident of Pawtucket supporting this bill. I'm here because I came up through the Pawtucket school system, and when I decided to pursue a college degree in environmental science, I can tell you I was not adequately prepared for it. I often felt like I had to work twice as hard as my peers to make up a gap. I know now, too, that it was really just pure luck that my 5th grade teacher happened to raise the topic of climate change in class. I was never exposed to it again in any class before graduating. And I recognize that it's miraculous, really, that hearing about it once was sufficient to spark my interest in a career at such a young age. There's so much potential in climate and clean energy jobs now, and I want other public school kids in Rhode Island to, first of all, be aware of these opportunities, but more importantly, be prepared for higher education or training if they want to pursue work in this space. I'm also supporting this bill because I believe that the lack of climate change education in our schools is leading to a phenomena of climate silence in adults. So even though polls tell us that the vast majority of us know the climate is changing, say it's an important issue, the majority of us also report that we rarely or never discuss it. And I believe that this stems from the powerlessness that can come from a lack of understanding. I can tell you firsthand from my own experience teaching adults in Rhode Island that once folks understand the basic mechanics of climate change, see how it's impacting the people and places they love, and know what solutions exist, they're much more apt to speak up. And as our representatives in government, you rely on us to speak up when something matters, but the lack of climate literacy is really robbing us of fully understanding how we're being impacted now and what will happen in the future if we don't do enough. So I ask you to support the Climate Literacy Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Crystal. Abigail Madden, excuse me. Please proceed.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your recognition. On behalf of the Exeter West Gardens Sustainability Club and high school, I humbly and respectfully urge you to pass the Climate Literacy Act, or in other words, H5625. I am the president of EWG Sustainability Club, and I encourage our members to practice sustainability and have environmentally conscious behaviors. I have seen what a group of 20 kids can do when they put their minds to it. Keep this in mind. Encouraging, teaching, and reinforcing good behaviors such as environmentally friendly acts will raise future generations in Rhode Island to become conscious and respectful children and adults. As we all know, grades pre-K through 3 are some of the most developmentally important years in a child's life. Teaching them environmentally friendly acts and basic facts about climate change will then help fight climate change and pollution along with other pressing issues itself. You may say, oh, this isn't an issue today, despite Texas having a cold front and Australia having raging wildfires, but your grandkids and their children will have to face climate change head on. If we don't take small steps as a state now, there will be no world eventually that your great-great-grandkids can call home, even though we will be long gone. I also want to stress how possible this is to include climate literacy in a curriculum, and I just want to say at 16, I had never really learned about climate change in Rhode Island until a 10th grade biology class. One last note, without treating climate change and pollution and global warming, in the future we cannot discuss other pressing issues like the ones you have all discussed tonight. And again, I assume what kids are capable of, in teaching them to be environmentally friendly and educating them on climate change will help save our world. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Thank you. Next witness, Meg Kerr, Audubon Society of Rhode Island. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Meg Kerr. I'm the Director of Policy at the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, and I'm speaking tonight in support of the H5625, the Climate Literacy Act. Audubon is one of the largest environmental education organizations in Rhode Island, and we reach out to well over 20,000 students of all ages each year. And our programs are designed to develop an environmentally literate and motivated community of young people, knowing that when they're excited about the environment, they'll also work to protect it. Last year, in the middle of the pandemic, we as an organization completed our strategic plan, and the plan was developed with a lot of outreach to leaders in the state and stakeholders. And we were told that our number one priority needs to be the climate crisis. So our strategic plan is entirely devoted to directing our resources at Audubon towards the climate crisis. And of course, that includes our education department. And we know that adults in the state care about climate change a lot. A recent article in the Boston Globe that looked at the public's policy preferences found that Rhode Islanders make climate change their second top priority next to COVID. And that is, there's only one other state that put climate change as number 2. So the adults really care about climate change. And this bill, when implemented, would give students throughout the state, more than the 20,000 that we can reach, the information and the data so that they can understand what's going on and approach the climate crisis with hope, which is the most important thing of all. So we at Audubon have educators who are standing ready to help the Department of Education implement this bill once it's passed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Thank you. Thomas Carroll, EWG Sustainability Club. Please proceed.
Good evening to everyone on the House Committee on Education. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Thomas Carroll, and as a member of the Exeter West Greenwich High School Sustainability Club, I'm in support of Bill 5625. Through my school's Sustainability Club, I've learned about climate change and how to reverse its effects. This club has given our members many opportunities to be environmentally conscious, from hosting a sustainable farmers market, taking over our school's recycling program, participating in beach cleanups, and many other activities. I'm very fortunate to have these experiences. Unfortunately, not every student is able to participate in extracurricular activities, and they should not have to devote extra time outside of class to learn about topics that students should be studying in the classroom. I wish there were more of an emphasis on climate change in my education, backed by accurate scientific information. Although my school district taught us some of the causes of climate change, there was not enough emphasis on it in the overall curriculum, and especially in regards to reversing the effects of climate change. With more talk about climate change in the world, Rhode Island students need to be prepared for the future. This past summer, I participated in the Prepare RI COVID-19 Innovation Challenge through the student-run corporation Atlantic Winds RI. My team worked with Norae, which is part of the North Kingstown Chamber of Commerce, that advocates for offshore wind energy in the state. We helped Norae promote careers in this growing industry to high school students. I know firsthand that the offshore wind energy sector is looking for workers in this growing industry, and Rhode Island can capitalize on these opportunities. Rhode Island is home to the first offshore wind energy farm in the country, and we can continue to grow from this early success. Not only are we able to cut down energy costs and our environmental impact, but we can also grow our economy. To have a workforce that is ready for the future economy, we need to have a workforce that is ready to meet its demands. Many of these jobs do not require a college degree, so there needs to be exposure to environmental science and K-12 education. In my time with the Sustainability Club and Atlantic Winds RI, I know that students are interested
That is 2
in the
minutes.
challenge. Okay.
In conclusion,
So,
finish strong.
In conclusion, I know that students really want this education, so I respectfully urge you to support this bill.
Thank you. Representative Giraldo has a question for you. 1 minute, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thomas, I just wanted to say a quick shout out to you and your fellow students that submitted. One, to you for testifying today, and I see the letter of support that you and your fellow students submitted. I'm just really happy to see people getting behind this and taking the time out of their day to put this together and reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my pleasure. It's so nice to have support, too.
Thank you, Thomas. The next witness, James Parisi, Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals. Mr. Parisi, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. The Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals supports this bill, and we appreciate the approach Representative Corcoran takes in addressing this issue. This bill doesn't create new course requirements, but seeks to impact existing curricular efforts. There's a lot of activity going on right now with curriculum due to the 2019 legislation that the Assembly passed. So it is really timely that if you want to impact the efforts going on right now about creating curriculum frameworks and model curriculum materials, that you convene a bunch of stakeholders to take a look at climate to infuse it. So we think this bill is timely, and not doing it this year might be a wasted opportunity because of the existing curriculum efforts going on right now. I want to mention 2 quick issues. Number 1, climate literacy supporters need to make sure that the Department of Ed has enough staff and resources to make this plan a reality. And number 2, it's great that the bill addresses teacher professional development, but there's no statewide funding for teacher professional development, and that's probably should be on everyone's to-do list in the near future should this bill pass. We support the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are.
Are there any questions for Mr. Parisi? Thank you, Mr. Parisi.
Thank you.
Topher Hamlet, Save the Bay. Topher?
He was on earlier.
Please proceed.
He was on earlier.
Thank you, Chairman McNamara and members of the committee. This is Topher Hamlet, back with you again, this time with my Save the Bay hat on. I'm here to express Save the Bay's strong support for H5625, the Climate Literacy Act. And I want to thank Representative Corcoran and all the co-sponsors for introducing the bill. For some context, Save the Bay's Explore the Bay program reaches about 15,000 Rhode Island students every year, both in the classroom and on the shore, and also on our shipboard programs. Climate change education is a core component of our programs, and we actually are pleased to report that a very in-depth survey showed that 76% of Rhode Island parents support climate change education, and 86% of teachers nationwide support climate education. Climate change education will equip our students with knowledge and skills they need to navigate a rapidly changing world and build an economy that is driven by innovation that actually tackles climate change. I also want to say that Save the Bay is willing and able to be a resource to our teachers by providing professional development, materials, lessons, and hands-on programming for our students. So this is a great bill whose time has come, and we strongly urge passage of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Hamlet? Thank you. Tucker Richmond, student. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tucker Richmond, and I am 12 years old. I'm a 6th grade student at Broad Rock Middle School in South Kingstown, Rhode Island. I became interested in climate change a couple of years ago and have since then invested much of my time into climate change research. I currently have a very knowledgeable science teacher, Mrs. Quimby, that has educated me and nurtured my interest in
Credit, mentioning teachers. No time taken out. Continue.
in this field. This past year, I've influenced others with my newfound knowledge, including my brother and parents. I have convinced my grandparents to install solar panels on their home. In addition, I became a vegetarian after learning that replacing meat with a vegetarian diet can reduce carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions. I have been looking forward for other ways I can make a difference. Climate education like this bill is important to me because I feel very passionately about bettering our planet and for a more sustainable, healthier environment for us to live in. I feel the need for greater support for our environment, and I believe my peers would as well if they received more education about climate change, our environment, and global warming. Thank you for this opportunity and for listening.
Well, Tucker, very good job. We feel as though we should give you a citation for all of your accomplishments, and it's certainly to be commended. You're a very good advocate, and you're a good role model for other people who will be testifying tonight. Concise, to the point, yeah, and mentioning your teacher. Are there any questions for Tucker? Thank you very much. We also have written testimony from Hollis Emery, Roger Williams Park Zoo, Andrea Stein, Gina Solito, Maggie Sheridan, Thomas Carroll, Mary Sorrentino, Crystal Noise, General Treasurer Seth Magazina, Rhode Island Environmental Ed Association, Jeannie Silversmith, Gwen Miller, Anna Schumacher, Kenny Figueroa. We heard some of these people. Kaylee LaFrance, Sage Manning, Alva Rudolph, Messiah Krazak, Jessica Calvino, Peter Muddish, Lauren Boss, Meg Kerr we heard from, Mark Hamlin, Stephen Gardner, and Jesse Rosito. And that concludes the hearing on 5625. The next bill we're going to hear is from our very own Representative Kislak from the fashionable East Side. Representative Kislak, welcome, 5650.
Hi, thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I am pleased to present to us for our consideration.
Representative Kislak, could you just wait 1 minute? The sound is, we have to turn up the volume a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that better?
It sounds like you're speaking from the bus tunnel under the East Side. 1 minute, we'll get this.
Okay.
Oh, that's much better. Thank
it is
you.
better. I won't use my headphones then. Thank you very much.
Very good. Please proceed, Representative Kislak.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm pleased to present for our consideration this bill tonight. It will form a commission, the Rhode Island Holocaust and Genocide Education Commission, which is the next step after legislation that our body passed in 2016 to add Holocaust and genocide education into our school curriculum. When I grew up as a Jewish kid, I learned about the Holocaust, and I learned how important it was to learn so that we wouldn't repeat history. I did not learn growing up about genocides and other traumas that were faced by other peoples, and I'm really grateful to be continuing my education and understanding that while we need to keep studying history so that we don't repeat history, unfortunately, genocide is too common. I'm grateful that the General Assembly passed legislation in 2016 to ensure that our schools are teaching Holocaust and genocide education in our classes. I want my children to learn our history and also the stories and history of classmates and communities around our state. I also support Chairwoman Williams' bill and was listening really closely to the testimony about including African heritage history in our curriculum. I think for a lot of the same reasons that we need to understand our history and know what our communities and our neighbors' communities have faced throughout history. I think it's really nice that both bills are being heard tonight because some of the same things apply. I think that we learn about each other the best through stories. And one of the things I want my children and all of us to learn is how to listen and how to tell stories. Many of us have individual, family, or group stories of displacement, trauma, and genocide. It has shaped our families, our histories, and our state. We should know and learn about the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, Bosnia, Cambodia, Rwanda, and more. We teach this material. So unlike some of the other really important bills we're hearing tonight in committee, this bill does not change curricular expectations. We already did that. But now's the time to take the next step by establishing this commission to make sure that our schools and our teachers have support to teach this important and difficult material, to keep the conversations about how we teach about genocide moving forward. When the time comes, I'd like to work with the chair on some amendments, some small amendments, to add one additional task for the commission to coordinate and publicize events for Genocide Recognition Month, which comes every April. RIDE is also involved in this educational activity, and they would like to be and should be on the Genocide and Holocaust Education Commission. I just want to make one quick comment about the testimony that we have received that I read after it was posted earlier today. There are, and I'm not sure who we're going to hear from in just a few minutes, there are powerful letters of support from Kurds, from Jews, from Armenians. There's also opposition from Turkish Rhode Islanders who are evidently concerned that their children might be bullied in school if this is taught. It's already taught. And I note that there's no other opposition. As a Jewish person, I have had some really interesting and difficult conversations with Germans about how the war and the Holocaust affected their families too. These are really important conversations to have, and it's really important that we make sure that we give our educators more support to be able to help students have them. And that's what this commission is going to do. It will further support the teachers in helping students to talk and to listen to each other, which are such important skills for us all to have right now. We should have lots of conversations. We should tell each other our stories. We should listen, learn, and grow together. I just want to close. I was listening when Keith Stokes said earlier today when talking about African heritage history. He said that reconciliation and healing starts with teaching and learning. I'm really glad to be bringing this bill before us today to form a Holocaust and Genocide Education Commission here in Rhode Island, and I thank you very much for your time.
Are there any questions for Representative Kislak? Hearing none, the first witness we have is Martin Cooper, Rhode Island Holocaust and Genocide Education. Please proceed.
More support to be able to help students.
Hello?
Them.
Yes,
And that's what this
please
commission
proceed.
is going
Turn your
to
radio
do.
off or the volume
it will
down.
further support the teachers.
All right.
Please proceed.
I'm ready.
Ready. Please
Okay.
proceed, Martin.
All right, I'm sorry. I want to thank you, Chairman McNamara, and the members of the committee. I am in support of 5650, which will establish a Genocide and Holocaust Education Commission. I want to particularly thank Reps. Kislak and Kazarian for letting me bend their ear in helping to establish this legislation. I had the honor to introduce legislation in 2015 that created a requirement for public Rhode Island middle and high schools to provide Holocaust and genocide education to its students. During the hearings for the legislation, I was asked if there was a need for a formal commission to be created. My reply at the time was that while I thought it was important to have a formal commission in place, it would be a better idea for a group or a small committee of people to get together with a vested commitment to Holocaust and genocide education so we could first lay down the foundation for the commission later. Prior to the legislation being introduced in 2016, the group has continued to meet. We have even met during the pandemic via Zoom. It's dedicated educators across all spectrums, and we've been able to work closely with RIDE. In that instance, we've worked so well with RIDE that on their website, everything that we've put together for a curriculum is now there for them to use for teachers and other educators. So we already have that partnership in place. The coalition also acts as a clearinghouse by providing resources and speakers to area schools to help educate students to the realities of these atrocities.
That is 2 minutes.
In conclusion?
In conclusion, okay, I'll do the in conclusion. There are, as Rebecca Kislik mentioned, there were a couple changes to be made, including the establishment of a Holocaust Genocide Awareness Month. We felt that that was extremely important, and it would be a great way to introduce the commission, and they could oversee it. One of the bigger problems that we have right now is that a lack of communication with the media. I'm doing in conclusion.
Okay, well, we have several other witnesses, and it's not fair
All right,
to everyone else.
I'll finish it right now. After World War II, I'll finish up. After World War II, a strong mantra, never again, came about in hopes of ending atrocities that have left millions dead and or misplaced. Holocaust, unfortunately, these atrocities are even still taking place today. So never again now needs to be heard, but we also need to reduce bullying and racism so that ultimately deaths won't occur. And I want to thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Carlson Friedman. Welcome, Carlson. Nice to hear from you. I met you, I think you were probably around 5 years old, getting ready to go to bed on the east side. This is Joe McNamara. How are you this evening?
I'm good.
Okay, please proceed.
Greetings, Chair McNamara. My name is Kirsten Friedman. I am 9 years old and in the 3rd grade at the Wheeler School. Some of you might know my mom. Her name is Hillary Levy Friedman, and she runs All Right Now. Every week she tells me about the bill she is going to testify about to help promote equality and end discrimination. On Sunday, she told me about this one, and I got the idea that I should testify. I have been studying World War II on my own because I think it is very interesting. I like to learn about how the Allied forces and the brave Americans risked their lives to save the world, literally. Because I got interested in World War II, I also learned about the events of the Holocaust. I had no idea something so bad happened to Jewish people. I am Jewish too. I support House Bill 5650 to form the Rhode Island Holocaust and Genocide Education Commission. I think this is important for 3 reasons. Number 1, we need to learn about the Holocaust so this never happens in the future. Number 2, when you're at school or in the real world, you should not exclude people because of their race, religion, or political party. Number 3, if you don't learn about the Holocaust, you are missing a big piece of history. If you become big and an important person someday and people ask you questions about the Holocaust and you don't know, for example, people wouldn't vote for you as president because they will think you are not as smart as other people. To learn about the Holocaust, I read a book called Number the Stars and watched documentaries like The Number on My Great-Grandpa's Arm and a World War II documentary by Ken Burns that my grandfather.
I don't know if I could be as brave as some of those kids, but I hope I could. Honestly, I knew about the Holocaust, but I had to look up what the word genocide means. Google told me that means, quote, the deliberate killing of a large group of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of killing or destroying that nation or group. That's really bad. Some of my friends are Armenian and Kurdish, and I know bad things have happened to their families. I can't believe genocide still can happen today. I don't want it to happen anymore, so please
Karsten,
make this happen.
we're getting to 2 minutes, Karsten.
Well, I'm going to wrap up soon, so please let me continue. So please make this happen so kids like me can learn about the Holocaust and make sure no one else is victim of genocide. Now my mom says I'm supposed to say, please pass House Bill 5650 out of the Education Committee so I can get a vote by the whole House. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Carlson. Nice job. Very well done. Please tell your parents we said hello. Are there any questions for Carlson? Thank you. Have a nice evening. Do you have a question? Okay.
The comment.
Yes.
Carlson, just wanted to give you lots of props. You did an excellent job, and your parents should be proud, and so should your fellow students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlson. Thank you very much. Next, we have Michael Bryant from Bryant University.
Okay.
Please proceed. Andy, Mr. Andrade, please proceed. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, this is Andy Andrade. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, talk about a tough act to follow with Carlson. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, we very much support this legislation. I had the pleasure of working with Rep. Kazarian and others, many others, in 2016 to pass the original legislation. I want to thank Rep. Kislak for really moving the ball. This is an important step, next step, by setting up this commission. We're very proud to be a part of it, and we look forward to continue our work on this. One of the things that happened from that 2016 legislation, there's a wealth of information on the RIDE website that was provided by the Rhode Island Jewish Alliance and many, many other groups, and that will help and has helped districts to use these materials to come up with great lesson plans for our Rhode Island students. So this is great legislation. Happy to support it and looking forward to working collaboratively as we have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Andrade? Should we go back to Michael? Michael, welcome. Please proceed.
Yes, hello.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. As both a Holocaust and genocide studies scholar active in the field for more than 2 decades, and as a Rhode Islander, I would urge you to adopt House Bill 5650, an act related to education, the Rhode Island Holocaust and Genocide Education Commission. I've taught courses in Holocaust history and related subjects for Ohio State University, the University of Toledo, Creighton University, Marburg University in Germany, the National Judicial College, and Bryant University. Moreover, in association with Creighton University and the University of Erlangen, Germany, each summer I teach a course in the Holocaust and the law in Nuremberg, Germany, attended by law students from both American and German law schools. I've published extensively in the field of Holocaust and genocide studies, as well as provided numerous media interviews on the subject, including as an advisor and talking head for 2 documentary films. As a scholar and teacher in this field, I've been struck by the meager knowledge base of otherwise intelligent college students concerning the events of the Holocaust. My impressions have been confirmed by recent studies of young Americans' awareness of the Holocaust. A 2018 survey released on Holocaust Remembrance Day found a lamentable absence of basic knowledge about the Holocaust within the millennial age cohort, ages 18 to 34. And I will quote from the New York Times summary of the survey's findings. 31% of Americans and 41% of millennials believe that 2 million or fewer Jews were killed in the Holocaust, when the actual number is around 6 million. 41% of Americans and 66% of millennials cannot say what Auschwitz was, and 52% of Americans wrongly think that Hitler came to power through force. The issue is not that people deny the Holocaust, the issue is just that it's receding from memory, said Greg Schneider, the Executive Vice President of the Claims Conference. People may not know the details themselves, but they still think it's important. That is very heartening. Source, the New York Times, April 12th, 2018. Rather than wring our hands about such lack of knowledge, the people of Rhode Island and you, their elected representatives, can try to address the problem by passing House Bill 5650. Its aims to promote public awareness of issues related to Holocaust and genocide, if fulfilled, will begin the important work of repairing deficiencies in young Rhode Islanders' knowledge of this history. By raising up a new generation of Rhode Islanders with a deeper comprehension.
In conclusion.
Yes, that's what I'm doing right now. By raising up a new generation of Rhode Islanders with a deeper comprehension of the Holocaust, we may contribute to the work of ridding genocide from the world, or at least reducing the likelihood of its occurrence. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Bye-bye.
Barbara Wahlberg. Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Barbara Wahlberg. I am speaking tonight in favor of House Bill number 5650. I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman, and the members of the House Committee for listening to my testimony. I'm an educator for Cranston Public Schools at Cranston High School East, where I have been teaching for 24 years. For all 24 years of my teaching career at CHSE, I have been educating my students about the Holocaust and the importance of why it is imperative to learn about this dark history. I teach the book Night by Elie Wiesel in the context of my 10th grade ELA class, but I teach so much more than just one book. My unit on the Holocaust includes reading poetry, reading the diaries of children, learning about anti-Semitism, watching films on the Holocaust, and listening to survivor testimony. I have used the USC Shoah Foundation Eyewitness Program with my students, and they have written journals, response poetry, and even written letters to survivors, one of whom was Gerda Weissman Klein. To say we just read Night is an understatement. Over the years, my dedication to lifelong learning about the Holocaust and other genocides has taken me on a long journey. In 2002, I became one of Rhode Island's first United States Memorial Museum's teaching fellows. I also had the pleasure of being invited to the University of Southern California to work with educators at the USC Shoah Foundation on eyewitness activities. In addition to these honors, I have served as Vice President for Education at the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education Center for the past 6 years, and helped to write the Holocaust and Genocide Education Bill that became law in 2016. My involvement with the Law Committee led me to also become part of the Rhode Island Holocaust and Genocide Education Committee, which later became the Coalition. Furthermore, I designed this curriculum for the Cranston Public Schools high school
That's
curriculum.
about 2 minutes.
Oh, that is? Oh, okay. So I just want to say that we are on the precipice of our own history, and this bill becoming law will make a big difference for us if we don't continue to. It all begins with education. All begins with knowing our history, so we don't continue to repeat the sins of the past. It all begins now, and this is why the Rhode Island Holocaust and Genocide Education Commission is needed at this moment.
Ms. Wahlberg.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for this witness? Thank you. Malie Brektis. Welcome. Please proceed.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. I am not fully against this act, but I feel like this needs to be revised, and the so-called Armenian genocide should be removed. And here's why. The truth and the historical realities should be the main guiding principle of this education. I mean, if the young kids are misled by a narration, who's main to aim not teaching the truth, but to create certain political atmosphere or a case against a country or its people, then the result will be entirely counterproductive, I think. And the seeds of the new lines between communities will have been planted, leaving a certain group of young people, in this case the children of Turkish American community, will be disenfranchised, caused by a feeling of becoming a target of narration produced over the years, not based on historical truth. As a Turkish American, I would like to create an awareness that this bill will put our kids in a situation where they will be even more excluded from their environment. Not only that, but the debate on the events that occurred in 1915 belongs to history, not to politics. Nevertheless, there is no academic or political consensus on the events of 1915. And most importantly, there is this terrorist organization called Asala. It is Armenian secret army. They killed 5 diplomats in North America, and one of them was in Boston, Orhan Gündüz. So imagine those extremists, the people who grow with this hatred against Turkish people. It happened in the past. FBI recognized this as a terrorist organization. And lastly, what happened in 2019? A group of grown-up Armenians harassed us, yelled and screamed where we gathered with our Turkish American society, with our kids. So imagine, please, what would those aggressive parents, children, will do to our kids in our school? And I'm finishing up right now. So,
okay.
Please consider how bad it could be for our little kids. Again,
thank you.
We just want this Armenian thing to be removed from this bill. Thank you.
And the sponsor has stated that she will work with all groups on this, and I think you find her to be a good listener and a good person to collaborate with. Next we have thank you for your testimony. Gokhan Vural. Welcome, please proceed.
Hello, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Gökhan Vural, resident of North Providence. Thanks for giving the opportunity to express myself concern about this important matter, House Bill 5650, Armenian Genocide Part Only. I have 3 daughters, Arya, Lydia, and Kyra, soon to be middle school students. We parents don't want this international matter, Armenian genocide, which was denied by United Nations 3 times in 2000, 2007, and 2015 to cause lifelong trauma for our children, especially in their teenage times, bullied by their classmates. We want our kids to be part of this beautiful American culture. This discriminative House Bill 5650, once again, Armenian Genocide Part Only, will create even more hateful generations against the Turkish young souls, especially in the middle school times, for those who are easy to expose bullying, which will cause lifelong trauma for them. I came from a district in Turkey where we Turks and Armenians were living peacefully together. We were never raised with any kind of hateful thoughts towards the Armenian society, even though my own ancestors who were exposed to massacre by Armenians themselves. This unfortunate House Bill 5650, Armenian Genocide Part, will fulfill young souls even more hatred, discrimination, and lifelong trauma. And yes, as was Mr. O'Brien was previously stating, bullying can cause suicide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Vural. Are there any questions for Mr. Vural? Thank you very much. Next, we have Hemet Mert Sanatkaliglu. The last name, it's difficult. Hemet, welcome.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Hamit Mert Sanatkaliglu, and I am the small business owner in Rhode Island, and also I am the Director of Partnership in Providence Pirates, which is a professional basketball team in Rhode Island. And I am against this bill because the word of genocide is horrible and it's not the truth. I do have two sons. One of them is 6 years old and one of them is 9 months old. The truth is, I don't want them to read something wrong on their books regarding to Armenian genocide. In First World War, whatever happened it was a war, and nobody does anything against them. Yes, Turkish people die, Armenian people die, and all that stuff, but it was a war. Nobody goes out of their way and just said, "Oh, we're just going to go kill Armenian people." That's not the truth. But at the meantime, they did torch the Turks, but the Turks didn't say anything about that because it was a war. Long story short, it's a history, and it's already written, but now the Armenian people are trying to change it, and I am not proud of this bill if it passed, and I can explain to my feelings to my sons when they reach out their age and read that things on the book that says that was the Armenian genocide happened by Turks. That's not true. I don't believe that. And that's why I'm against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for this witness? And with that, we have written correspondence from Courtney Spy, who's against it, Nasserian Muska against it, Nailuf Turan against it, East Selick is supportive, Sybil Yuba Sigio is supported, Pauline Getzian is in support, Turkish General Council is opposed, Heli Ithlik is opposed, Samet Brektis is opposed, Ali Aliik is opposed, Serfis Hathaway opposed, Una Baran in opposition, Janine Goldfried is supportive, Marty Cooper is supportive, Esther Kalinian is supportive, Dr. Ron Weisberg is supportive, Colin McCullough supportive, Michael Bryant, Professor supportive, Leonard Newman supportive, Jewish Alliance of Rhode Island, Stephanie Haig supportive, Susan Heritage, Susan Arena is supported, David Weed, Dr. Howard Tinberg, Professor of English, support, Karsten Friedman, third grader at Wheeler, support, Emily Adavov of opposition, M. Hakan Dorad in opposition, Kadas Elitin opposition, Hal Pilit opposition, Sania Gurerik opposition, and Caitlin McNamara. That's my daughter, Katie McNamara, but this is Caitlin McNamara in opposition. So that concludes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I wonder if I might just say one more short thing, because I learned a lot today about how visceral history still is. And I just wanted to react to the folks from Turkey, of Turkish heritage, who spoke out
briefly,
tonight.
We don't want to debate it.
I just want to react that I think that this is an additional reason why we need this commission to help further conversations and the tools of having conversations and listening to each other. What happened 100 years ago happened 100 years ago. What happened during World War II and the Holocaust happened then. There are genocides happening today, and we need tools to talk to each other across our differences. And those conversations can be both very painful and also very healing. And I'm hoping that we really can together talk and reconcile and heal and learn together. And I think that it's very important for us to have this commission and talk about all the genocides together.
Yeah, I agree. This is part of the process. And certainly we're lucky to have someone that's like yourself, who's inclusive and collaborative. So I'm sure that we will progress as this goes forward. Thank you, Representative Kislak.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on that bill. And the next bill, we're having, whatever your pleasure is. You can testify from there. Is Representative Giraldo, 5698. Would you want to just stay here? It's your pleasure. Okay. Representative Giraldo, welcome. Please proceed. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow members of the House Committee on Education. I want to thank you for taking the time to hear me out on my bill H5698. To me, this is a simple and straightforward bill that aims to set our students and families up for success. This bill would require all public schools to send out written invitations to all parents, guardians, or caretakers of students, inviting those parents, guardians, or caretakers to an orientation at the school within 30 days of the start of the new school year. I believe this is a common sense step forward to ensure that we are all doing all that we can to bring families into our schools. So why is this important? I would first ask that if you have not yet reviewed the survey works data posted on RIDE's website that speaks to how our students, teachers, and families rate our overall performance as a state, as different you can break it down by our 62 different school districts. You can break it down by school, all 331 of them. If you haven't taken a look at that, I'd ask that you take a minute to do so. Because while we have some areas that are worth celebrating, especially around how our third through fifth graders view education, the report highlights several areas where we say we could and should do better. Two areas of concern are in the areas of school belonging and school engagement. According to the survey of over 25,000 respondents, only 23% of families had a favorable view of their school's family engagement practices, which is down from 24% in the year prior. And this isn't just an urban issue, actually. While urban families report 29% with a positive view on engagement, suburban families are actually lower at 23%. So some of the examples of the questions that are asked to families are, how often do you meet in person with teachers at your child's school? The amount of positive response was a devastating 9% for all of Rhode Island. How involved have you been with the parent group at your child's school? 14%. And it isn't just the parents that are feeling the disconnect. Overall, 25% of respondents in the 6th through 12th grade category have a favorable, only 25% have a favorable view of school engagement, placing us in the absolute lowest percentile nationally, the lowest. So I don't know about you, but to me it even hurts to read those numbers. So my bill is aimed at taking a really small step forward. I will admit that I have not done a survey to see which schools are already inviting parents in for an orientation and which ones aren't. But I think these survey results are telling enough that we need to take every opportunity to ensure that parents, guardians, and caretakers are being invited to be a partner in their child's learning at every opportunity. So in addition, I acknowledge that there are various methods that schools may already currently use to communicate with parents. Maybe email, texting, applications like Aspen, or even social media. But these can be spotty due to glitches, user error, or lack of internet access. The first orientation and those first few opportunities are so important. We need to make certain that every parent is given this critical chance to come into their school, meet the teachers, meet the staff, feel comfortable coming into the school, and we can't let that go to waste. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for allowing me to testify today, and thank you for your consideration of this bill.
Well, thank you, Representative Giraldo, and I was as shocked as you were when I read the results of Survey Works with the number of parents that don't feel as though they're connected. I think it's 46% with their schools. And I also agree with you that, you know, we have to be a little bit more creative and certainly aware of language and culture of our parents. And, sometimes some of the simplest things can be like a home run. Like I know when I was in Pawtucket, we would brainstorm about ways to get parents in. And one of the things that we discovered was food and offering childcare, telling people that your family, your grandparents are welcome, everyone is welcome. And then it evolved into, we had like potluck dinners that were, representing 40 different cultures and languages. And people got to know each other, and that's how you get a community established.
Exactly right.
So I think it's very important. I commend you for it. It sounds simple, but it's a key element in establishing a good school culture. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Any questions? Representative Fedden Fung.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rep. Geraldo, for trying what we can to engage more of the parents, especially when we're talking about schools in the urban core, dealing with major issues on chronic absenteeism. Engaging the parents early on is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Couple things about this I just want to clear up. Would you be amenable? The way that this bill's written right now, it's kind of like it has to be a separate invitation from other communications. I know like Cranston, and there's some school districts already send out kind of packets towards the beginning of the year. When I'm thinking about, we have over 11,000 students in Cranston, so I'm thinking another mailing, like when we're talking about the fiscal impact, okay, I mean, it's not small, okay, what you could do with $10,000, $11,000 otherwise. Whether or not that could kind of be included in other communications. I also kind of, I'm thinking, why can't we just do email? But you bring up a really good point, and I think one thing that's come up during the pandemic is the digital divide, unfortunately, especially in the urban core. So made me think a little bit different about that. But also, maybe if school systems do tend to communicate, or parents want the communication via email, perhaps giving them that option, kind of an opt-in or whatnot. And finally, I think one of the main issues that came up in the early meetings when Commissioner Infante Green came up and kind of did her tour around Providence was that there wasn't enough language-specific communications, and that's where a lot of this was falling through, especially on the west side. I remember some of those meetings. I don't know what it would take, but I'm thinking of Southeast Asian, Cambodian families as well, when it's a very different script that they use. Whether or not we could even try to translate it into different languages and whatnot, so that we grab more of those families that were feeling disconnected. I know that takes an extra step. I don't know if those resources exist at RIDE or local colleges or whatnot, but I'd love to see that kind of incorporated. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think those are great recommendations. I don't get the feeling that this has to be a separate invitation in any manner. To me, my intention behind it was that it could go along with another packet. It could go along with other invites to be more efficient. But I also hear you on the need to have those translated, and I think that's a great recommendation. I'd be happy to consider that.
Yeah, Mr. Connell, we might have some recommendations there for, it can be included, we make it specific, it can be included, language, different languages. And,
yeah, I think based on the percentage of the population.
And with other communications.
Absolutely.
And giving people.
Sure.
So
Yep.
we'll include all of those.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Representative Geraldo? Thank you very much. That concludes the hearing on 5698. And the last bill that we have this evening, and you can call up Dr. Thornton, if you get Dr. Thornton on deck, please, is going to be 5836. And Chairman Shanley is currently before his committee and stated that we could start with Dr. Philip Thornton. Dr. Philip Thornton is the superintendent of the Warwick School Committee. Dr. Thornton. Chairman Shanley has worked very hard on this legislation, and I believe he's been working on it for approximately 3 years, and gained consensus from most of the parties involved. And Mr. Connell, if we could address, there are some concerns from the Met, and I believe they've sent some written testimony. If we could look at that language that relates to the Met and Davies in there, because I spoke with the sponsor and he said that that was not part of this intended to be in this particular piece of legislation. So if we could look at that. Is Dr. Thornton available?
Certainly.
He's on?
Yes, I am.
Oh. Dr. Thornton, welcome. Please proceed.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5836 looks to remedy the problem where in several instances parents and students are exercising a choice. Yes, sir.
Welcome. Please proceed.
Can you hear me, Chairman? Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Dr. Thornton? Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a
Hello. Hello.
Dr. Thornton?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, we can hear him at home.
Okay, how about Tim Ryan? Yeah. Mr. Ryan? Mr. Ryan? A little technical difficulty here, folks. Anyone on deck?
Good evening, Chairman McNamara.
So the key language in this bill is A, it's prospective for students that are going out of district for programs. No one will be affected now that is currently enrolled in a program going out of district. The second key phrase is if a school department offers a substantially similar program. Like Dr. Thornton used the example, Warwick doesn't have a dance program in high school. We have students that attend the Jacqueline Walsh School for the Performing Arts in Pawtucket because we don't have that particular program. However, we have technology programs that are very similar to programs where students are attending out of district. Is anyone on deck?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes. Dr. Thornton, welcome.
Yes, finally. Thank you. Great.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5836 looks to remedy the problem where in several instances parents and students are exercising a choice to attend a particular school district with a particular program when the program already exists in the home district. In Warwick, this expanded choice option cost $1.6 million last year, $2.1 million this year, and $2.5 million next year. Now, I fully recognize there are programs that Warwick does not have in districts, and I support students having choice in these areas. But I can't support is paying tuition when we have the program in district. Two quick examples for you, Mr. Chairman. First, we have an Academy of Business Management and Marketing, a 3-year program and 1,200 clock hours, but I'm paying for 40 tuitions to 2 districts for a business pathway to the tune of $672,000. My second example, we have a computer science, IT networking, cybersecurity pathway, 3-year program, but we're paying 10 tuitions to a district for $168,000. 5836 really says if a district has a substantially similar program as another district, where a student may want to attend, the home district is not compelled to pay the tuition to that district. The bill also provides a mechanism to solve any disputes that may arise with regard to what is substantially similar. Should there be a dispute between two districts on what may be substantially similar, the current tech board would hear the matter and have the final authority in resolving it. 5836 also looks to fairly assign a tuition amount to be paid by the sending district. With the current practice, RIDE assigns the tuition rate based on the per pupil expense of the sending district, not the receiving one. Consider Warwick, where around 19,000 a student, and consider we may pay or send a student to a district that only has a $16,000 per student number. That means the receiving district is making more than it costs to educate the student. The remedy in 5836 proposes the average of the sending and receiving districts to arrive at a more equitable tuition number. Lastly, 5836 allows for grandfathering of all students currently in programs that are substantially similar and those that will apply prior to January of 2022. This affords students opportunity to finish what they started. So I believe, Mr. Chairman, 5836 is a fair and equitable bill. I look forward to your conversations and hopeful passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thornton. Are there any questions for Dr. Thornton? Yes, Representative Fenton Fung.
Yeah, Dr. Thornton, thanks. Dr. Thornton, thanks so much for that. I think there's a lot of great compromise language in this bill. So I'm sure, obviously, it's been, I guess, about 3 years. Rep. Shanley's been working on this. I do have a question. What happens when we have a child with an IEP? Is there any special consideration for their needs under the statute here when we're choosing which school they could go to?
Yeah, the IEP process is really not spoken to in the bill, but all districts have to comply with the IEP. So if I receive a student in Warwick, I have to meet the needs of the student. So that really couldn't be a barrier of us receiving or sending a student.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Any further questions for Dr. Thornton? Thank you very much, Dr. Thornton. We'll see you back in Warwick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Tim Ryan, Rhode Island Association of School Superintendents. Welcome, Mr. Ryan. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chairman McNamara. My name is Tim Ryan, and I'm from the Rhode Island School Superintendents Association, and we are in support of this bill. Just in terms of context, years ago, when we thought of career and tech education, we thought of regional centers. When I worked on Aquidneck Island, the kids from Portsmouth and Middletown and Tiverton, kids who wanted a vocational program went to Rogers High School, and that was pretty simple how that was done in establishing tuition rates. More recently, however, school-based programs arose, and in Warwick, for example, as Dr. Thornton said, you may have a drafting program in the Career and Tech Center, but there's a drafting program at another high school at a school-based program. And so the issue of tuition payments grew contentious. This bill, as Dr. Thornton said, is a big compromise on that. RISA's position in the past is that our position has been programs are duplicate. This opens us up a little bit and says that they're substantially equal. But we support it because of the equalizing of at least the fair compromise on the tuition. And I would, again, really like to praise Representative Shanley. He's taken a lot of leadership on this. He's really kind of stepped in and been in some contentious meetings, and he's really just been a real champion on this bill. So we support this, and we think it's an important step forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan, and certainly those contentious hearings we had when it was initially introduced, where he's done an amazing job to build a consensus around a common sense bill. I agree 100%. Are there any questions for Mr. Ryan? Thank you. The next witness is Mr. James Parisi, Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Healthcare Professionals. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. The Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals supports this bill, and we appreciate Representative Shanley's continued interest in trying to resolve certain funding issues related to career and technical education. We're also happy we're on the same side as superintendents. We've never understood why public school districts are required to make tuition payments for students who attend CT programs in other cities or towns when the host district offers the same program. It's an unnecessary increase in public school spending and clearly constitutes an unjustifiable unfunded mandate. This bill would alleviate that requirement as long as the programs that the district offered was substantially similar and approved by the state CTE board. We think it's a good policy. Quite frankly, there's AFT districts that are probably winners and losers in the effort to attract CTE students in their pathway programs. But this bill is about having a rational and sensible policy on a go-forward basis. The bill contains protections for students who are already enrolled in the program, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Parisi? Thank you for your testimony. The following people have signed up, sent written testimony. Nancy Diaz from the Met High School in opposition. Rhode Island Department of Ed is on board. Rhode Island Department of Steve Osborne has some suggested amendments. We can look at that, Mr. Connell. And Rhode Island Farm Bureau, Henry Wright, supports it. That concludes the hearing on 5836. And if we could look at the Met School and their mention in there as a state school, Mr. Connell. Okay, thank you. That concludes bills from tonight's hearings, and with that, I would like to thank Vice Chair Amore of East Providence, Representative Alzate of Pawtucket, Representative Bayev from Providence, Representative Caldwell of East Greenwich, Representative Donovan coming all the way from Bristol, Representative Fenton Fung from Cranston, Western Cranston, Representative Giraldo from the great city of Central Falls, Representative Kislak, Representative Norae from Coventry and West Warwick, Representative Phillips from Woonsocket and a little bit of Cumberland, and Representative Roberts from Coventry and a little bit of West Greenwich, and Representative Showcroft Smith of Cumberland and a little bit of Pawtucket. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice night.